always interesting shit happening.
Yes, always.
Throughout their entire catalog, that is one of the things that draws me to them more than anything. There's just always something interesting happening.
Yeah, and but it's always interesting, and there's always like a thread that you could grab onto, and like it always goes down easy, even though there hasn't been in this up to this point there hasn't been a chorus yet. Like there hasn't been a thing that like repeats really. I mean there are sections in it. Definitely getting rid of that other microphone.
Oh, the green one? Yeah.
Yeah, I hate the way my voice sounds on it.
It seems ill-suited for this.
Well, so many people do use it, but I think it's just, like it's the one that's the mic that Fantano uses.
Huh. Well, he's like one dude in a single setup.
Right, and
he doesn't really move. I don't know if that matters, but.
Right, yeah. And everybody's voice is different. And I just don't like the way that my voice sounds on it. And so it feels real thin and real like tinny and harsh in a way that I don't like.
Well, maybe we should try it on my voice sometime and see if it
maybe
because there's a weird thing with our voices together.
That's true because man, that's like the strangest thing, like the funniest thing. I was way more intense about it when we started. Of like trying to like EQ, trying to like deal with different people's voices and make them sound good or whatever, and getting all this like just hyper detail about how everyone's voice is different and what is different about them. And it's like, man, it's just a funny thing to have studied about your friends. That why is that person so wet when they talk? Like what?
Just laughing it up there.
Why is there so much of this and
just leaking?
and like Justin's voice was strange.
Yeah. I listened back to the thing you sent me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was like it just wasn't really there a lot of the time. It was like.
There was I forgot exactly what it was, but there were certain frequencies in his voice that were just missing.
Yeah.
Like when I would like sweep the EQ and like, it's like, dude, there's no mid-range.
Gets there and just troughs. Like,
Like I sweep it and I boost it. I have it peaked all the way and just nothing changes. Where normally like you go through that and it sounds like a filter envelope, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like with his, it just sounded the same in like a certain region. I forgot exactly what it was. Hold on. I was texting him about it, giving him shit. But yeah.
What's up, bro? How's it going? Your voice is fucked up.
Yeah, that is kind of what I said. And he was like, "Oh, thanks, man.
I appreciate it.
Oh, that's a cool thing to hear."
Yeah. I'm not coming back on, by the way.
Yeah, I'll never see you ever again. Oh fuck. Let's see. Oh man, might have been on another phone.
You got multiple phones?
Oh wait, yeah, there you go. Here it is. So your voice is weird as fuck.
Yeah.
He's like, gee, thanks, man. There's almost no low end, and right, yeah, and it's really that's what it was. There's like no low end. It's really boomy in the mid range, but there's no harshness in the high end.
Yeah.
Okay. So like normally you have to go in and you got to be careful with that high end, to deal with all the sibilants and stuff like that. And then, but yeah, it was just really weird. Where like yours is really unique too, because yours is really heavy in the low end, but then there's also like a lot of sort of artifacts and things in the high end.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, because it what it sounds like is it's like everything. It's I guess it's like everything's just really big, so it's like bassy, but for it to sound clean, to have like a pure tone, you'd have to speak very loud,
Right.
and that's just not how you talk.
Right. And when I do, it sounds very loud, and I can't. So yeah, that's why like screaming and All Severed like worked. It made sense because I could do that
Right,
sort of naturally. But
it was like, looking back on it, it's really funny because it didn't. What you were like able to do was actually really, really unique. But for some reason it like didn't surprise anyone. It was just like, oh yeah, of course, like Robert can just like, go just turn the dial up, from like, soft spoken to death metal. Like, just there it is.
I don't know why it didn't surprise anyone. There was like no
There's zero precedent for any of it. I don't even know how we got you to try.
I don't remember. Yeah.
It's well, because like that's the thing is like I can remember me being shitty at it and then getting better and then figuring out how to do it. It seemed like you just like
Yeah, I don't know. I want to say the first thing that we had me sing was Legions, but maybe it was just the Courses of Integrity. I don't know.
Yeah,
because we reworked Legions at a certain point where it ended up. It didn't used to be that way.
I forgot how we played it live towards the end, but
Legions.
Yeah, because we didn't actually it wasn't a staple in the set, but there was like one show where we were so tired of playing our normal set that we played all old songs. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, yeah.
We broke out. Like, it was like, oh, well, it's like the third Metal Fest we've played this year. And it was like that weird period where, like, all right, well, we have like our set that's like honed to like a weapon, and there's a few interchangeable things, or you could put a cover here or whatever.
Yeah.
But we were just kind of bored of it, but we hadn't had time to like write new stuff to fit into the set yet. So we're like, fuck this. Let's just play songs that we haven't played in 5 years.
Yeah. I think that we played like Simbus.
We played like Simbus and Free and Legions. We might have even have like played like a few snippets of Truth or something.
Yeah. Yes.
Just for giggles.
Yeah. I think where we ended up with Legions, it was how it was on 8125.
Oh, okay. Okay.
At the time, where it was just that was how it ended up. But it used to be back in the day when it was like John singing.
Right.
It was like a different thing.
That's true.
Had a different feel to it.
That's true. Yeah.
I want to say that was maybe the first thing. But yeah, I just like came out fucking swinging on that, I guess. Because there was never any like practice or like how do I go about it? How do I approach it? Do I do this? It just happened.
Yeah, and it's like it's so funny to think about. Because I'm starting to like look into like some extreme vocal like courses and things like that. Like, oh man, how do you like do this right?
Yeah.
Kind of stuff like that. And it is funny because we just sort of like, there's no rule book, no sort of like, like you're just, like you just like, you're just sort of. You're just like going around until you find a sound you like, and you try to just stay on that,
Yeah, just like whatever was available there, just will it to work for what you're doing. That's kind of how we approached it.
Right, and it is what is funny though too, and I feel like this is almost like the number one thing that has held me back in really all forms of my musical development.
Okay.
My technical development in the context of like metal and extreme music is this concept that I always feel like it needed to be loud and it needed to like hurt a little.
Oh, hurt you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, those two things like go together. You know what I mean? Like, it needs to be loud, right? And making it loud kind of inevitably hurts you.
Yeah, right.
And so like hearing these like professional vocal coaches and everyone talking about like, oh, this should be easy. Like you should be using as much breath as you use when you talk.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? things like that, where the way that I did it, the way that I did like my fry screams and everything, that was like, it's basically like I would put a barrier in like front of my airway and then with all of my being push sound through that.
Yes.
And that was how the sound happened.
Yeah. I think it was kind of the same for me. It was like less of a tone and more of just a force.
Yeah.
Like you just force something to happen.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, and what's funny is
technique be damned.
Is that just certain people were able to do certain things, you know? And because like John, I think he was probably trying to do a very similar thing to what you were doing, but his voice just didn't sound like that when he would just push.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there was no...
It was like a bit more strained and like kind of...
Right. There was... it was a little more like Henry Rollins-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? And like there was no like sort of like there was no like distortion on it, you know, for lack of a better, or very little distortion on it. Just
more like a yell.
Yes. Yeah. More like a yell or like a shout.
Let it all out.
You know. Wah! You know what I mean? Like that kind of, but not like in a cool hardcore way. But well, because that's not what our music was, right? It just didn't fit the music. Not his fault.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But just dumb luck, you're able to like do the same, like go about it the same way, basically, and it makes a sound that works with the music,
right?
For whatever reason, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. That's a thing that like I think about a lot, or I think about like Jeremy's vocals, and I'm like, that poor son of a bitch. That we kept trying to make him fucking sing.
Yeah.
Because we just had our like we have to have someone sing, and he was the only one who could like who had good pitch.
Yeah.
But he didn't know how to fucking like he didn't know like the mechanics of how to like make a good sound that he liked. Right?
Yeah.
Like he could. I'm not talking shit. He hated his singing voice. Like this isn't me talking shit on him. Like this is
well, no, it always felt similar to what we're saying. Like it felt like he was just forcing something to happen as best he could.
Right.
And not really any technique behind it necessarily. Just
right. And I think he tried.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I think he definitely worked on it, but he tried like but he didn't have like the tools to or someone to show him like, hey, here's how you make a good like clean, you know, sound that you're trying to make in this music. You know
because he wasn't in choir, was he? It was just John.
Right, just John.
Yeah. And right, Mike also. Yeah.
And like, but on the other hand, Jeremy could do an amazing like fucking tom or like a Slayer and like and it's like, man, it's one of those things I look back on, I'm like, man, I wish I would have been more acquainted with like the death metal vocabulary, because that's a weird thing about when we were doing our stuff is that death metal had kind of was starting to become uncool, and like black metal was the cooler thing. And so like a black metal like shriek wouldn't have fit our music, but like a good old like fucking Tampa snarl, like fucking a good like old school death metal snarl, you know, like all that shit, right?
Yeah.
The way that he did it,
and he did do that sometimes.
He did do it, like he would do it. That's how he did his Slayer. That's how it came out with like Slayer songs.
Yeah.
Or when we would do other covers, you know what I mean? Or when we would do fast, he would sing fast or whatever, and it sounded like, you can look at live footage. I'm like, why didn't we have him do that all the time? That sounds like so good.
Yeah, I can't remember what song it is, but there's one of our songs there he does that, and it works really well.
It's like the pre-chorus of Integrity, maybe, is one spot.
That's definitely maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
there's a lot of spots, but like that. You know what I mean? Like, but he would like put like just a little bit of like affect on it, but you could. But there was still lots of clarity to it.
Yeah, but it was like cutting. It was like biting.
Yeah, very piercing.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It had like because it's like he would attack like every syllable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so and it's like, man, what a fucking missed opportunity. You know.
Yeah.
To like, okay, well that's the thing you do good. Lean into that.
This is good. Let's put this to use somehow.
Yeah. Okay, this singing shit, we're gonna let that go. Which we did. We let it go on. you know, euphemism / carry me home, you know what I mean? And used it very like artfully and effectively on there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because before we had like warmth, and that's all that was.
Right. It's like, you carry this whole fucking song, you know?
Carry this home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like the whole, or like the middle of Creator and stuff like that.
Right.
Which is such a weird song.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about it. Like he and I wrote that song like sitting at a fucking like just I had some lyrics. We wrote the very first version of that song. I had some lyrics because I went through this phase where I wrote like, you know, like where I had like in my head like ideas for these songs and I wrote like 15 sets of lyrics. You know what I mean? This was stuff that just me and Jeremy were working on. Whenever like the first band we were in sort of broke up and it was just me and him, and we had all this sort of stuff. Like we were going in a much more sort of I mean, I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but like much more of a sort of like skater kids interpreting And Justice for All. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of vibe.
That label checks out.
You know? But yeah, no, man, like I fucking went with his family to like a fucking like shitty beach house. You know what I mean? And we were like sitting there. And I like had these lyrics and like he came up with the riff and we wrote the fucking song like that sitting out there. You know what I mean? And
I'm just picturing you like on the beach now in like Hawaiian shirts and like sunset, and, like Jack Johnson feeling shit. Yeah. Oh yeah, ukulele. Yeah. Tiki torches.
I have like a tape demo of it somewhere. You know what I mean? And it became something different, of course. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But then our live interpretation of it became like this. Like, all right, so for this section, we'll go as fast as fucking possible. And
yes,
you know.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. That's like an interesting. That's an interesting concept there of sort of, you know. When do you just like when do you sort of stick to your guns and keep working on your crap because you're like your craft, not your crap, because you're like, I have this vision and I want to be able to do this thing this way.
Right.
And when do you be like, well, I'm really good at this. Let me put all my chips here.
Right.
And just do this
Let
thing.
me play to my strengths.
Yeah.
Versus try to channel a new strength or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Like when do you make those calls, you know?
Yeah.
And how do you make those decisions? Because the thing that you're good at, you still put work into that. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, maybe if I put work in this other thing, I'll be good at that thing too. And
yeah.
But
part of me wants to just say like the answer is when you mature as a person is when you make that call to say I'm just going to do what I'm good at because it makes sense. But also it's like you shouldn't not try new things. So
yeah, it's a
tough one.
It's like one of those things of like it's just sort of the concept and process of being in a band. I was in a cover band for a while and like the leader of the band, his name was Al Hayes, and one of the things he used to say is he's like, I think every new band should be a cover band or should start a cover band, and learn like 50 songs as different songs as you can. And he's like, and when you do that, then you'll find the things that you're able to do well.
Yeah.
And then that becomes your band.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of songs you write. You write around the, you know what I mean? But you need, that was like his like philosophy on it.
That makes sense. Yeah. I see the reason.
I mean, and when you think about it, that is kind of what we did, because we did try to play a lot of other people's music. You know, and the ones we were able to, the songs we were able to do the best were the fast songs.
Yeah.
You know, like we were able to do the Slayer songs pretty well. So
yeah.
So we stuck with that.
Stuff that we could kind of fudge and still make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And we could do that outro of New Millennium Cyanide Christ real well.
That's true. We did that. I do wish, talking about this more, I do wish that I had made some sort of an attempt to actually try and sing back then. I mean, I was definitely scared to try.
Oh yeah.
But I bet that I could have done something with that.
I think everyone can.
Yeah.
And
At least in the context of what we were doing.
yeah,
I could have made something probably happen.
you and Jeremy could have been harmonizing.
And yeah. On guitars and vocals.
Coming out of, like on platforms, coming out of the stage, smoke. Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, but that whole like sort of like it's supposed to hurt. That's a thing that I struggle with on drums too.
Still.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely, because there's like a certain sound. It's just I think it's just shit that happens whenever you come up playing music unmiked in a shitty garage with loud amps that are where like the half stack is right here and it's pointed directly at you, but the guitarist is standing above it, so they can't actually hear their own amp, so they turn it up, so you play louder, so they turn up, so you play louder, and
That's what we did.
and I'm having this battle with this fucking amp, you know. It really, you know, we weren't super bad about it. Trepanation was worse.
I can see that.
So,
Yeah. Because there was, especially with like Joe, there was like a clarity I know that he strove for.
oh yeah,
That you're only gonna get that with, in a place like where y'all are playing, you're only gonna get that with like max volume.
sure,
So,
yeah, because he's clean is a great way. I've jammed with that guy a few times over the years, and like, you know, within the past, I mean, me and him and Jeff were working on stuff right up when the Pando started. You know what I mean?
Right,
and
right.
like, that guy's ridiculous. Like he just like is able to like move this and like amazing clean studio ready metal just comes out.
Yeah, just churns it out.
Like you could just like, hey Joe, just play for a while. I'm just gonna like keep time. You know what I mean? And then you could do that for like 20 minutes, you know, 10 or 15 minutes. And then you could go in and you're going to have like 15 or 20 riffs that are golden. Then you can just take those and chop them up, move them around, and you can get like a whole metal album out of it, you know? Okay, well, this riff, we can base a whole song around this riff and deconstruct it and then put it back together, you know? And then it just comes out of them, and it is all, like, pristinely articulated. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Man.
But, yeah, him and the other guitarist, Brandon, would have, like, half stacks, like, 3 feet from my fucking face, you know?
I guess at a certain point, like, space is the enemy there. Because, yeah,
Yeah.
like, it was like 5-6 people in the van at one time.
5 at the most, you know, because it was just, you know, it was a normal band, you know, like 2 guitarists, bass, drums, singer.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah.
But they lost their bassist, or we lost our bassist at some point too, because bass player repellent. We just never got another one, so we just played as a 4-piece. But yeah, like that concept of sort of, well, man, if you want to hear the kick drum in your rehearsal, you should fucking put a mic on it. And it's like, dude, that's not punk rock. That's not hardcore. No, you just need to play it louder.
Yeah. Because what was the argument there? I guess. Well, it's not going to be like that on stage. It's not.
It's pretty sure it's gonna be mic'd on stage.
Isn't it? Well, it's not going to be like that on the album. Isn't it?
Is it? Are you pretty sure it's gonna be? Yeah. It was this like our entire experience of the music was like, how does it make us feel in this room?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the way it made us feel in the room was if we sacrificed a little bit of precision for some volume and intensity.
Because it did feel great to just like be in this shitty, dirty room, playing our asses off and playing our hearts out, and like nailing it.
Yeah.
But also having it take a physical toll on all of us in more ways than one.
By nailing it, what we mean is that we would start and stop at the same time.
Exactly.
Like per section, you know what I mean? Like
in between?
In between is anyone's guess, you know? But we would
Difficult
1,
to
2,
tell.
3, 4, bum, 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 you know what I mean? And all those spaces would be together. But
Right.
but once things started and went for a while, it was whatever it was.
There was drift,
Yes.
as you say.
Yeah. Lots of
Continental drift.
So, but it was but yeah, I don't know. That whole concept of, cuz it's hard for me now to sort of teach myself to and to like, yeah, you played that quietly on the kick drum, but you played it precisely and you played it exactly in time and and that's what you want to do. You know?
Yeah.
Cuz I remember being mad when I would see a drummer play and he was like, I would get pissed.
Yeah. Just looking like zero, like no sweat broken. No,
Yeah. I would be upset. You know what I mean? Because I grew up not watching Vinnie Paul play live because there's not enough fucking footage of him playing live, but I would grow up reading how he said he played. You know, which was like, you know, there's like this like quote in like a Hit Parader, like where Dime was like, "Nah, man, you know, like we go all out with every note. You know, if Vinny's hitting the drum, he's hitting it with his whole arm. If I'm playing the drum, I'm hitting him the whole everything, man. You just go all in on everything."
Some dime bag bullshit.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, you absolutely do not. You are a fucking liar.
Yeah.
Cause it's like you watch him play, you're like, that's not how he plays. He plays fucking like smooth, you know, and like Vinny doesn't play that way either, you know.
Right.
But you would only like see cool shit of Vinny, you know, and like boom, you shoot music video, like that's it. That's the thing. It's like we grew up, learn how to. I mean, for me, you know what I mean, like, because that is the thing though, like, because Guitar World did embrace metal.
Yeah.
Modern Drummer, for instance, did not. So it was hard to get good information about how to play metal. And so like I would like watch like the same few seconds of like a music video over and over again.
Right.
But
And that's unreliable narration right there because you're playing it up for the video.
and they're only gonna like put they're gonna put the cool clip of the drummer. They're gonna
Somebody
put
going.
yeah. You know, where the symbol's
Symbol
on fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of the shot like that. You know, like that's the fucking, you know, like they're gonna play like right at the beginning of the blast section. You know what I mean?
Yeah, before it like catches up and like kind of slows down and stabilizes.
Yeah, before he's on like the sixth measure of that blast beat and he's like sort of like taking him. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I'm like, God damn it, that's just how you have to fucking play all the fucking time, you know? Like everything had to be like, Arr!
That's funny because like we've talked about how, you know, people, the generation like after us sort of had to listen to this pristinely recorded metal and go like, well, I guess I got to do that now. And I guess back then that's all we had.
It's the exact opposite
like,
for us.
Yeah, we just had
way.
these little these little like tiny pieces, little tidbits of like, well, I guess I guess I have to play how this looks.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, well, man, you listen to a live Slayer record, you listen to Decade of Aggression, you're like, oh, this sounds amazing. It is sloppy as fuck. I guess you just have to get on stage and try hard. Mm-hmm. I guess that's what you have to do. And then you go see your bands and like, you go, you know, and everyone was kind of shitty live. Like when it comes to, you know, like doing that kind of shit with the fucking kicks. Like,
Yeah.
no one was. I mean, Gene Hoglan was probably doing it, like probably nailing it to the fucking wall, but it wasn't. Like, I remember seeing Slipknot live together. We're right before Volume 3 came out. So I think
Yeah.
2004, early 2004, I think.
Right.
At Bayou City. Verizon.
Yeah. Revention.
Aerial Theater. Revention.
Aerial Theater. Thank you.
All the names. That
Aerial Wireless.
Yeah.
A name you can trust.
And I remember getting to like one of like the double bass, like maybe, you know, like Surfacing or something or Heretic Anthem or something. One of those like long, like, you know, double kick runs. And it was like, you know, You know what I mean? And like I remember me and Jeremy, and we're like, "Oh man, well, you know that happens sometimes." And it was like and we're like, "No big fucking deal," you know. It's like, no, you try your best,
Right.
you know. And this is like the fucking top of the heap. Like no one is inspiring more drummers to play in that style than fucking Joey Jordison, you know. And like there he is, like fucking tennis shoes and a fucking dryer, and we're like, "Oh well." He's still the best ever.
Yeah. He's up there trying.
And that shit would not fly today. Like that would just not be okay.
Man.
And I mean, no, I'm gonna stick with that. Like it just would not, you know, everyone would. God damn it. Well, I don't know. It kind of does. It kind of does still fly a little bit today, but not.
Is it just that it's easier to bitch about today?
No, it's definitely not that. No, it's just that the standard has gotten way higher. And I mean, the standards have gotten higher, not just for the bands and the musicians, but the audience. The audience themselves have, like, the non-musicians, right? The non-drummers, the non-guitarists have grown accustomed to a higher level of precision from records and also in live shows. So you can kind of like you can watch a crowd with like a sloppy drummer that is maybe playing intense, just going for it. And you can see the crowd like not react as much as they will to a drummer that is just fucking cold, but surgically precise. And the kicks are fucking loud as fucking triggered, and everything is, you know, like just perfect.
Right.
And that the crowd will, you can watch it. Like you can see it at shows now. And so, but yeah, no, it is a no, I mean, I think it's just because that next generation just was
Just
like,
that same thing.
yeah, they just like, oh fuck, that's how good because we talked about that, like that in the sort of the mid to late aughts, that's sort of whenever, because we were at a point to where home recording was getting accessible, right? But I don't know if like the ability to edit and do like beat detective and chop drums up and do that in a way that and to do that artfully was super accessible
Right.
to us. Like you couldn't have done that on a fucking Roland 1680, you know. I think you could do it in Pro Tools still, but I think that I don't know, but towards the late aughts, that became easier to do.
Right.
So you start to hear more perfect, like you started to hear like kids making like perfect sounding records.
Sure.
And I remember that's when I started to like tune out of metal, because I was like, you're fucking liars. Because I know that you didn't play that. I fucking know. And I guarantee you, in some instances I was absolutely wrong, and those kids absolutely fucking played that.
Sure.
But there was like a whole generation of people that were learning to play music then, and they were like, fuck, I guess that's just how I have to sound. And it prioritizes precision over that intensity, where we prioritized intensity.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
And so
I wonder what the actual numbers would be on like how many people heard those perfect recordings and felt like they had to get there versus just how many people there were doing that weren't heard at the time. Because they kind of, both of those things kind of happened parallel.
I don't understand what you mean by the second thing.
So like people who were playing music perfectly for themselves, but now they have YouTube or MySpace or SoundCloud or whatever, and they can just get it out there now.
So just like the idea that this like sort of like perfectly executed music, or this music that strives for perfection, existed the whole time.
Just that there were people good enough to do that,
right?
But they weren't being heard doing it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There definitely were some people. I just wonder what the number is versus the other camp we're talking about here.
Right, and then those people are able to like find their audience
Yeah.
through like YouTube and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I have had like a little like dipshit like little theory about things like that in the sense, because I think you've seen in the past, I feel like 8 years maybe, is this sort of explosion of like technical death metal and and just really like death metal and these extreme forms in general. There's been like this just renaissance of that sort of shit. You know what I mean? Like young people get very, very into it. You know what I mean? And whatnot. Like I'm in a band with people that are literally half my age, you know, and we're into the same shit, you know. And then I was like, man, I wonder if it's because like fast shit like that like sounds good on your phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can like turn on like your phone speaker, and if it's like music that's going a million miles an hour, that sounds pretty fucking rad.
Yeah, that's a valid argument. I guess man.
But like, you know, you probably like if I put on like Led Zeppelin and play it out of my phone, it sounds good because you know what the rest of it sounds like. It reminds you of the fullness and the amazingness of like that is like what Led Zeppelin is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if I put on like First Fragment or, you know, or like Benighted or, you know, some of this shit that's just a million miles an hour, you're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. You know?
I guess, but I'm like, okay, it's fast. Fucking so what?
But you're not into that shit.
Exactly, that's what I'm
You
saying.
know what
yeah.
I mean? Like
that's where it like loses me completely.
Well, there's nothing that could have made you into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I also have an extreme prejudice against people listening to shit out of their phones. Few things piss me off more than that.
Well, even like not just necessarily. Well, I mean, or like in the sense of sort of watching quick clips on Instagram or quick YouTube videos or something like that. Like
Turn the shit off.
It's entertaining to scroll through YouTube and see a guy playing blast beats at 280 or 300 BPMs and like watch that for like a 30 seconds. It's entertaining to do that.
Yeah,
it's more entertaining to see that than it is to like see someone like talk about the exact place you need to accent the hi-hat when you play When the Levee Breaks.
Sure, but yeah, entertainment versus like musical enjoyment are these different things.
But there's an overlap. There's got to be, because you start on your musical journey because you're entertained and you're enthralled by these things.
Yeah.
You know, so
there's an overlap.
For sure. I mean, you know, but I mean, like there is like a different thing when you're like, because yeah, that's. I guess that's a fucking problem. Anyway,
I guess I've had the exact opposite thing happen more often than not, where I've scrolled through and seen like, someone like, I don't know, the fucking dude from Polyphia or like Yvette Young or somebody playing some like amazing, intricate two-handed tapping, like just absolutely inside. I don't even know how you could conceive of something like this.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
pristine.
Right.
It's amazing. And then I'm like, clearly fucking amazing. Let's go listen to the band. And I'm like, not really. No thanks.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't really. Yeah, there's an overlap, but I'm not the kind of person, I guess, who that kind of stuff speaks to anyway.
But if you're younger, right, and you don't because you already have a firm sort of definition of what music is, and so you're checking to see if this fits into that.
Maybe, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, maybe if someone's younger and like this is their primary intake of you know, of music and whatnot, as opposed to like, because we watched a lot of music videos, you know what I mean? Like we would sit our ass in front of a fucking television and either watch MTV or put in a fucking VHS that we bought from Suncoast, paying $30 fucking for a Aussie VHS, you know, or whatever.
True.
And that's like a different experience, you know. Or the way that you learned a lot of guitar is you'd buy like a $5 Guitar World magazine and you would sit there and read the fucking notation and you would learn what they put in front of you. Like you weren't just like scrolling until you saw a thing that made you feel a certain, I'll learn that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's I don't know. It's just,
I mean, pretty early on, the internet became available and you could download tabs. So it wasn't very, very long like that. But yes, I see your point.
Right.
Yeah.
It
It is a different thing.
but even then, like downloading a tab, you would need to have already heard the song.
Yeah, you're not discovering music that way.
Right.
Sure.
Right. Whereas like someone could be scrolling through Instagram or YouTube or whatever and discover a band like Polyphia. You know what I mean? And if they're not old fucks like us and they're, like cup isn't almost full or whatever, then when they go hear that band, that might do more for them.
Sure.
Than it does. Cause I feel that like, Periphery's kind of like that for me in the sense where I actually had a few lessons with their drummer. And I learned a lot. That was like extremely helpful. Cause he's amazing. he's a fucking king shit fucking drummer and a great teacher, which those don't always go together. But they're one of those bands that they're kind of like Soundgarden for me in a sense that I feel like I'm always like, man, I should like this band more than I do.
Sure.
I should really love this band.
Yeah.
Why can't I do it? It's not that I dislike it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
Like that kind of. I don't know. Are there any bands like that for you that where you're like,
Yeah, I can't think of anything offhand, but I know I've felt that way many times over the years.
Yeah.
It's like, by all rights, I should be way into this, but
right.
Something just isn't clicking.
Like I can acknowledge that this is great.
Yeah.
And
I can acknowledge the talent at play.
Yeah, and
it's just not speaking to me.
But and there's checks and boxes that I should really like this.
Yeah.
But man.
But I'm gonna listen to this thing that I've listened to 50 times already.
Yeah. So
no, this is 100% just old man bullshit.
Yeah.
On my part, anyway.
Yeah, Justin from Sever the Silence, he was texting me today, and he was because I had actually texted him while I was listening to some of what we're going to talk about today, Baroness. Spoiler alert. And I was I was like, have you listened to blah 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 blah? It might be a good inspiration for some of the vocal stuff, that you want to do. And we were texting back and forth about things like, what do you want to do for lyrics? Are you feeling any like topic or whatever? And I was like, cause we ended up, we talk about like a lot of like political stuff, you know what I mean? And he's one of those guys that is like a little more like kind of, I guess you could say like kind of like left of center, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, and I'm like left. And so, but anyway, we have a lot of like really cool conversations over there. Well, he hasn't stopped talking to me, so I guess they're cool conversations.
Haven't driven him away yet.
Yeah. But it's cool stuff, because I'm like, oh, here's why I started thinking this thing, and here's why I started reading like these books about racism and about this or whatever. And he's like, holy shit, I never thought about it that way. Blah 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 blah. Like I was telling him about like the Tulsa massacre and stuff like that,
right.
And he's like,
the what?
Yeah, he's like,
exactly.
Why did they do that?
Yeah.
Which I think is like such a like important example of history, because it sort of just directly counteracts like I don't know about you, but the thing that I was always taught growing up, or like the pretext that I would hear from like older people, was like, it was just, oh, black people need to do better. Black people need to do better. Black people need to do better.
Mm-hmm.
They need to have jobs. They need to this. They need to they need to do better. And if you read about like the Tulsa massacre, then it's like, oh, that's what happens when black people do better.
That was Black Wall Street.
Right.
Like that's what happened.
Yeah, like create their own, their own wealth, their own banks, their all that sort of stuff, blah 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 blah, and white people like mobilized and got planes and
burn that shit down
and murdered as many people as they could, just because like black success was that intimidating and terrifying for them.
Yeah, and I don't know. I didn't go to school in Oklahoma, so maybe they taught it somewhere up there, but they damn sure didn't teach that down here.
Fucking yeah, no mention.
I had
Absolutely.
never heard of it until like a couple years ago, maybe a year ago.
Yeah,
Very recently.
I had heard about it. Yeah, several years ago because I was watching a documentary. And it came up in the documentary.
Yeah.
And I was literally blown the fuck away.
Yeah.
Like, because it absolutely changes that fucking narrative. You know what I mean? That is sort of implicitly handed to us of like, because what's taught to us explicitly sometimes, even explicitly sometimes, but implicitly is, or what was taught to us was, it's like, fucking slavery happened a long time ago. Black people had their chance. And they just need to do better. Like, that's the kind of shit that, you know, like my uncle would say, or my this would say, you know, I mean, like that's the sea that I was swimming in.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And like Tulsa is a firm counterexample to, you know, to that and whatnot.
Yep.
But yeah, so I was texting with Justin. Anyway, we have cool conversations, but I feel like I'm becoming his token leftist friend. No, I don't know if that's true. But anyway, whatever. He was like, well, you know, what do you want to write about?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, obviously, I want to write about the proletariat wearing the skins of the bourgeoisie. Because I was like, that'll, haha.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? And he's like, sounds good to me.
10 steps ahead of you.
I was just going to write about old man shit. I was like, what do you mean write about old man shit? Like if I fart too loud, my hands go numb? Like that kind of old.
Wait, what? Is that a thing? As I choke to death?
No, not really. I just thought it was a funny thing to say.
Okay, fair. New one to me. Is that somewhere in the back of Uncle John's bathroom reader or some shit?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Like, oh, man. Oh, uh-oh.
Oh, no. Oh, shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do have nerve issues, but it's not related to that. It's like, oh, I sat like this for too long. Now my bottom two fingers are numb.
Right.
You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just speaking of old man problems. So
no shortage these days.
of experiencing new music and whatnot. Well, we're getting close.
Lord.
So
Getting about that time.
surprisingly.
So yeah, if we want to move on to the topic du jour.
Du jour, yeah, let's do it.
So we're looking at one of my ideas for a series of episodes was just to fucking talk about a bunch of Baroness,
Fuck yeah, man.
who I think it's pretty safe to say is easily my favorite band, just across the board, bar none.
After listening to the stuff today, I think I can see why. So
All right.
I think they deserve that title.
Sweet.
So I am more. Baroness is strange for me in the sense that you several times tried to get me into them, and it just didn't stick for whatever reason. But then Yellow and Green came out. And for however you were able to do it, you got me to listen to Yellow and Green.
Yeah, I don't even remember how that actually happened.
I don't either.
Yeah. Because that was after we were living together in Kingwood. It came out in 2012.
Yeah.
So I'd gone by then.
Yeah. But was
I guess we were in Buff Wayne at that point, maybe still,
barely.
or maybe like the tail end.
That was because Buff Wayne kind of parted ways beginning or mid, like spring of 2012.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think we played our last show somewhere around May 2012 or something like that.
Yeah.
But we were still like, you know, we weren't like saturated in each other's presence, but we were still, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you might have just I don't
Maybe I was just like, here, check this out. You should check this out. And you,
or maybe because of like Spotify or something like that. And I was like, oh, well, Robert said this was good.
maybe.
Let me listen to this while I play Skyrim or something.
Right.
I don't fucking know.
It was those days. It could have been the case.
But anyway, that became like one of my favorite albums of all time. Ever. But whenever I had tried to go back, it didn't do it didn't do the thing for me that Yellow and Green did. So I kind of, you know, and I didn't dig too much deeper. I was like, okay. And then I think I tried listening to Purple that came out after it. Mm-hmm. And it didn't do the thing for me. And I was like, okay, well, all right. Well, I guess I'm just a Yellow and Green guy. What I really mean, because I historically don't listen to the second disc of double albums. What I really mean is
You're a Yellow guy.
I'm a Yellow guy. Yeah. I still haven't listened to Green.
Coward.
I imagine that it's good.
Have you really not? I hope not.
I'm at a crossroads at this moment of whether I try to lie to you.
Oh no! If not, that's perfect. That's great.
No. I have. I absolutely have.
Okay. I thought so, but I was like, you never know with this motherfucker.
Yeah.
He's got a history.
Yeah. Stadium Arcadium. My favorite single disc album of all time.
Mm-hmm. Some of the best 12 songs you've ever heard.
Yeah, the best 14 tracks I've ever fucking heard. The last song on that album, Wet Sand, I think it is. Mm-hmm. Oh man, what a closer for an incredible single disc album.
Good thing they cut it off there. Mm-hmm. Didn't try to stretch themselves too thin.
Yep. So my Baroness experience is like very focused on that album, but very sort of like deep on just that one vein, you know?
Yeah.
Not a lot of breadth.
And very, very album focused too in that regard, because you've only probably seen them twice, maybe 3 times.
So we saw them at Rudyard's together.
Right. That was for the Purple tour, so that was 2015. Because Purple had just come out.
But Gina wasn't in the band yet.
Nope.
Okay.
She didn't join till a few years later.
Okay, she joined after Purple.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So we saw them then. We saw them. You, me, Jet saw them when we saw, I think, Clutch.
Okay.
At the House of Blues, and that was right when Blue came out.
Right. That was long
like
ago.
09.
I have little to no memory of that.
Yeah.
But that was a weird period of time, because that was when every time you would go to the House of Blues, things were real fighty.
There was some dumb bullshit happening. Yeah.
Like it was
super bro-y out of nowhere.
It was really strange. It was like people were. It's like there weren't enough bars in Houston at the time to like catch up with like a new influx of a certain demographic of drinkers.
Yeah, maybe.
And so people didn't know where they were supposed to go yet. So you would just get like these really weird, like bro-y idiots standing next to you at a fucking Clutch show.
Yep.
That are like wanting to fight you. And it was pretty anyway.
Yeah.
Pretty strange.
Bunch of white dudes in NBA jerseys and gold chains trying to push you around and tackle you and shit. It was really strange.
I don't remember like dudes in jerseys and gold chains.
That's what I remember.
What I remember, I remember like dudes who just looked like they were like going to a club, like tight fitted, like button up shirts or whatever, and like would like lean over to you and be like, "Hey, my girlfriend's standing there." What do you mean? My girlfriend was standing there.
Yeah. Your point?
Like this kind of like, it's like, dude, this is standing room only. Like, you can't like reserve a spot. What are you talking about? And we're like 12 feet from the stage. Like this, just really weird.
It's a weird vibe.
Just so weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
A dude almost got in a fight at the Rammstein show, by the way.
No kidding.
I'll tell you about it later.
Right.
Anyway.
But yeah, that was a weird period of time, and that was one of the times that you saw them.
Right. So, but I distinctly remember the Rudyard show, and they sounded fucking amazing. They sounded perfect. They sound exactly like the record. And
they really sounded great. That whole show is on YouTube, by the way. Some dude.
Fuck yeah.
Because like if you were like looking at them, because there was no stage, but just they were on the floor, and I was standing like off. What is it? Stage right?
You were off on stage left.
Stage left. I was like leaning up against the amps from the last band who had played. I was like right there, and there was a dude on the opposite side who recorded everything. He's like standing right in front of Peter, the other guitarist.
Nice.
Getting the opposite angle, and the whole thing's just up on YouTube. It sounds fantastic for like a phone recording. Right next to them.
Because they sounded They sounded so good.
They sounded really good. Yeah.
And then we saw them with Deaf Heaven.
Yeah.
At White Oak.
Right.
Where we ran into Harrison.
Yeah,
as a matter
exactly.
of fact.
True. And I think past that I've seen him one other time.
Okay.
Because I saw him in Pittsburgh and took
right.
like my dad and brother and his girlfriend to see him.
Yeah.
It was weird. Like I talked all them into going because they'd never seen him at all, and I was like, they're gonna be there while I'm up here. Let's go to the show. And we got there, and my other brother and his girlfriend were there, just like already there.
Your other brother?
Yeah. I got like 4 stepbrothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep. Brother from another mother. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
so that was strange.
It's in the Rabel vibe.
Yeah. They were just like there, like, oh shit, you came to see Baroness? Cool. I didn't even know you were in town. You don't live here.
That's wild.
That's strange.
That's great.
Yeah. So I like to think that I helped get them into Baroness as well. Yeah.
Ushered them in.
Anyone I can. Yeah.
Led the path. Yeah. So that's like sort of my brief experience with them. When did you get into them?
So I got into them first, right. It would have been a little after Red came out, I guess.
Okay.
So like, what did I say? Was it 09, 07? Okay, so no. Red came out in 2007, and I got into them in like sometime in 09.
Okay.
Which would have been a little bit before Blue came out.
So was Red the first thing you heard?
Yeah.
And how did that album, which by the way, we're talking about the first 2 EPs, the songs they did on the split with Unpersons.
Yeah, who I'd never heard of.
And then Red. That's the topic of today. We're stopping after Red for today.
Yeah.
So how did Red hit you when you first heard it?
It was something where I had read a recommendation of it that someone had recommended it on a forum or something like that, and I was out looking for new stuff to listen to, and I think it was like a thread about like, I don't know, stoner rock or something.
Were you already into like stoner shit or starting to get in? Because you were probably
I was
already
into Mastodon at this point, and Queens of the Stone Age, and I think I was looking for more stuff like that.
Were you into Caius yet?
I had listened to Caius way back in the day.
Okay.
My uncles were way big into Caius.
Yeah.
So like I knew of them. And then I got way into Queens of the Stone Age before I got into Caius, but then I went back and like Blues for the Red Sun is fucking an amazing album.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, I was like looking for more recommendations on similar types of music, and I think Red had been out, and like apparently a couple of publications like gave it album of the year that year it came out.
Yeah.
Which, like, what? Over The Blackening, for example. Like, okay.
Oh, yeah. Like
weird.
I read that and I saw that Revolver gave it album of the year, and I saw that before I listened to it, but I wasn't like skeptical or anything like that, but after I listened to it I was like, yeah, that's fair.
It's really good.
That's fair.
So yeah, I had seen it recommended, and then I went and found it, and I kind of instantly grabbed me because it was so different to so many other things.
Sure.
And the little things that it did hooked me so hard that I just kept listening to it and like fell in love with it. Absolutely. So this was like when we were living. This was when I was already living in Kingwood.
Okay.
And you remember how
yeah, because you said 09.
Yeah.
You said 09, not 07.
Yes.
09.
Yeah, it came out in 07. I found it a couple years later.
I see. Okay.
So like we were living in that house, and you remember how that house was structured? There was like the big loft upstairs and the open air. So like I would be like in the kitchen like cooking or something like that, and just have my stereo up there blaring that album.
Yeah.
And the whole house would just be filled with it. I can't remember how many times that exact situation occurred, but that happened a lot. Like I really loved that album. Like as soon as I found it, instantly.
Cool.
Fell in love with it. So it hit me really. it hit me well. It hit
Right.
me, it hit me just the right way.
It was the right. It was you were in the right place.
Yeah,
To hear
it's
it.
exactly what I was looking for.
Got it.
It just
Got
so
it.
happened.
And so then did you immediately dig into their earlier stuff?
Not really, no.
Okay. Did
So-
you ever?
Yeah, eventually.
Okay.
But yeah, so like it was 2009 when I found that, and then like a couple months later or a month later, whatever, Blue came out. So then there was that for me to dig into and get all into.
Okay.
And so yeah, maybe a few years later or so, I went back and checked out the earlier stuff, which
Okay.
is the 3 EP or the 2.5
Right.
EPs.
And how did that hit you when you listened to it?
I was like, well, this is different.
Uh-huh.
Substantially so in some pretty obvious ways, but first and second I definitely went back to a lot over time, because those you can still, like, the pieces are all there except for the singing.
Yeah.
The singing is the big differentiator,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
otherwise, like, this Baroness is still there.
For sure.
It's mostly Baisley, I think, is really what it is. John Baisley, the singer,
yes.
and rhythm guitarist for the band.
Well, but it's mostly the same lineup from first. I mean, except for there's a guitarist change, right?
Yeah.
But aside,
So from first to like Red is basically the same.
right,
band.
and so there's a guitarist change at Red, and then it's pretty much the same band, like all the way up to the Accident, right?
It's the same band. Yes, up until the Accident, and then the bass player and drummer leave.
Right.
But so yeah, the drummer is there from the beginning to Yellow and Green.
Right. And hot fucking shit that's some man. Holy
Yeah.
shit, dude.
Into it.
Holy shit, dude. That is
Listening to this again, because I listen to this fucking album all the time, and the EPs less so, but frequently. But listening to this, knowing that you were listening to it, and trying to think about how you would be hearing this, like through the lens of a drummer vocabulary, I was like, man, there's a lot of cool shit on here.
dude, this is like
I was hoping you would say that.
this is here, let me see what I fucking wrote down. Let me see what I wrote down. So when this was like a note I had written down, like just kind of freeform during the first EP, was like, I love this drummer. Amazing drum sounds, incredible taste and feel. You know, duh, right? But let's see. There was something really specific I wrote about some of the drums down here. Maybe? Oh yeah. Goddamn this drumming. It's so good. This is top shelf groovy rock drumming of the highest order. Like to me, this is like this is Bonham caliber. Like this is like a modern, you know what I mean? Like this is doing the Bonham thing in this medium. Do you know what I mean?
That's kind of the feel I get from it, yeah.
Like where you just have like impeccable feel, impeccable taste, you know? Now what he's doing isn't as like relatively speaking, right? Like relatively speaking, because what made Bonham such a big deal is that there was no template for how to do that, right? So he's adding all this new vocabulary and he's bringing all this new stuff in and blah, 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 blah. And you've never heard anyone, like you had never heard anyone do that thing, like that beat that he's doing or that lick or that whatever. You had never heard anyone do that, especially in a band that had fucking electric guitars or whatever. So there's not something relatively as like groundbreaking that the drummer is doing, but it is that caliber of sort of serving the song with power, groove, and taste.
Yeah.
An impeccable fucking feel, man, because these records feel so organic and they feel so it's like it's inspiring and depressing at the same time, because you can like feel how good of a band they are. Like it's the kind of album you listen to and you're like, well, I know they're amazing live because I can hear how much they have rehearsed this thing and how much of a real fucking band they are. And it's so inspiring. But then it's also really depressing because you're like, God damn it, I can't do that because I can't find three other people to get their asses over here, you know, a couple times a week to get this good, you know? And so then it goes down, if you're a depressed person like me, it goes down this
a
rabbit
dark
hole.
hole there.
Yeah, of like, I'll never be in a good band again.
Oh no.
But
you can listen to a good band.
But yeah, the drumming is so fucking good.
Cool. Like, cause that's pretty much exactly how I feel about it too, and like it really hit home listening to it this time and through that lens, where it's like it's constantly like throughout it's just like a great feel, and it keeps things grounded but also like moving forward. But there are so many little tasty things that happen that always elevate it to me.
Well, and another thing too that they do amazingly as a band. Let me see, because I wrote it down. Blah 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 blah. Fuck. Whatever. I'm just gonna do my best. Oh yeah, here it is. Like there are so many sort of seamless trade-offs in as far as like what instrument has like the lead voice. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, okay, there's a guitar lead, a guitar harmony thing that's going, okay, there's a little bit of space. Now here's a cool drum riff. And then right when that drum riff finishes, there's a bass fill. You know what I mean? And that's the entire hour and 40 minutes that it is to listen to all of this in one chunk. That happens the entire time. A vocal finishes, a lead thing, and these aren't like just like, okay, a drum fill at the end of a phrase. It's not that. It's
right.
It's like a hi-hat accent, but it's not.
It's like within the parts of the song, there are like transitions.
Yeah.
Between the instruments that happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like little licks, little parts that they do.
Right.
But they all complement one another.
Right. And it
very
creates this sort of like steady stream of sort of activity.
There's always interesting shit happening.
Yes, always.
Throughout their entire catalog, that is one of the things that draws me to them more than anything. There's just always something interesting happening.
Yeah, and but it's always interesting, and there's always like a thread that you could grab onto, and like it always goes down easy, even though there hasn't been in this up to this point there hasn't been a chorus yet. Like there hasn't been a thing that like repeats really. I mean there are sections that repeat, but there hasn't been like a traditional hook, traditional arrangement.
There's I mean, for one thing, their songs are untraditionally structured in the first place. On the other hand, but in addition, they don't have that many lyrics throughout these first albums.
It's almost like a totally instrumental band, or like it functions well. Hold on, what am I trying to say? It is complete.
Okay.
Without the lyrics. And so the lyrics do obviously, of course, take it to another level. I'm not insulting the lyrics or because the lyrics are incredible. And like the imagery that's used is really unique. Yeah, I feel, especially in like this genre, and whatnot. It's like it's abstract, but it still feels very focused in a unique way.
Yeah, something that I'll come back to on the future ones as well is like something about the lyrics that John does for this band is like they're extremely abstract, they're like vague and sort of generalized, but they come off in a very they are those things, but they're structured in like a way that still comes across as personal.
Yes.
And like
absolutely.
It's really weird. I've not really found any other bands that do that for me.
It's odd. It's an odd combination of things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're describing things that really have nothing to do with you, but it's clear that somewhere along the line you felt something from that.
Right.
Or something.
It's almost okay. Oh my God. I mean, of course. This sounds so lame. It's almost like. I mean, and he is an amazing artist. He's an amazing painter. He does all the album covers for other bands.
Yeah.
So it's almost like with the lyrics, you almost get this feeling like he's looking at a scene, and he is using and that scene is very real, right? That scene has very real, palpable, intense emotion, for him.
Yeah.
And he's using these words as sort of colors to sort of, like as like little emotional anchors for that scene, but it's not like a vivid recreation of the scene. Do you know what I mean? Like it's yeah.
It's more of a mood thing a lot of the time.
Right.
And he uses a lot of like really esoteric language, like words that like archaic shit that people just don't use.
Right.
I think he reads a lot of like older fiction and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It feels like James Joyce lyrics or some shit.
Yeah, sometimes.
You know?
Yeah, like the song "Isaac" on Red is like pulled from an old Norwegian novel from like 1920. That
Nice.
yeah. So
and then to like take that and like deliver, like. Because it's like, all right, someone's singing shit from an old Norwegian novel. You imagine it like some fucking hipster folk.
Right.
Shit like that. And it's like, nah, dude, he's like bellowing this. you
right.
know?
Like this sounds like something that I need to be hearing right now.
Right. Like this is...
It's forceful in a way. It's like, it makes it sound important. And that's one of the same things that drew me to Clutch in the first place. Because Neil Fallon does kind of the same thing. Especially in some of their earlier shit. Because he'll just pull out some bizarre phrases and link them together in fucked up ways, and they're really, there's so much imagery happening there.
There's like few like singers or lyricists in heavy music that I would be like that I feel it's appropriate to describe as a wordsmith. But Neil is definitely. Definitely one of those.
1000% yes. Exactly.
Firebirds, energy weapons.
Dude.
Like, oh my God. I wish I could remember the exact, I can't remember the exact course, but it's like one of my like this is like, like both of these things are something to me. I don't care how you get them. I need them both and I need them urgently.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
It's so, because it's like he's imagining a cool sci-fi, like he's imagining a cool scene in like an early Philip K. Dick novel, like when PKD was writing like just normal sci-fi. It's like he's imagining a cool scene in that, but then he's like inserting a smartass into it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's like participating in it,
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
I need them both, and I need them urgently.
But the rhythm to it is always a huge factor.
It's always, yeah.
Man.
Always top notch, man.
Oh, man, we'll have to do a Clutch episode too. The entirety of Pure Rock Fury is that for me. Like,
okay.
That's the album to me that exemplifies that style that really works for me. Elephant Riders is good too, but.
Right.
But anyway, that's the same sort of thing that draws me to John Baisley's lyrics in Baroness.
Gotcha.
Just maybe in a less flippant way.
Yeah. There's like a tongue-in-cheek element
to some of Clutch's stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
There's like a pulp, kind of vibe.
He literally references like Omni magazine in one of their songs. Like, that's what he's doing there.
Right. There's something. Like, like Baroness is the classical literature version of to Clutch's pulp,
Yeah. Whenever we talked about Mastodon at some point, I described it as like there being silly Mastodon and then there being serious Mastodon.
Sure.
To me, that's the same sort of thing going on there.
Yeah.
Where Baroness generally takes itself very seriously in that regard. But like never to a fault.
Well, what I've seen of them as people, because I think I follow all of them, like individually on Instagram. Like I see what their drummer's doing every fucking day, and they all seem like such, laid back, down to earth
people. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, and then that's something that I really, really, if someone is able to, because that's always the trick, right? Like, how do you take the music and treat the music with a deadly seriousness, but not treat yourself that way?
Right.
How do you
Yeah, it's a fine line to walk because like if you're putting so much of yourself into the music, at some level you want to like. You would think that those things would go both ways, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Or like I'm special because I created this thing that's amazing and blah blah blah. Or
Yeah.
I'm special because I put this much work into it or whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, like listen to any interviews with them. Like they're super humble and just super down to earth. Just like extreme like music fanatics. Like you can tell, like super music dorks.
Right.
And then just look no further than like the 2 Minutes to Late Night channel. Like everyone but John has been in multiple of those videos.
Oh, okay.
Doing stupid covers and being goofy and like
Sure.
you go watch like Gina dancing around her kitchen playing fucking Pantera solos. It's great. It's wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
That's awesome. So yeah. All right.
So had you ever listened to any of? I guess you tried to check out Red at some point.
I remember specifically being on a drive, out Austin-ish ways, because I was going to visit Zach Robinson. He was like house sitting for someone out there.
Okay.
Which I got him into Yellow and Green, by the way.
Hey, nice.
And like a few months later, or like a year later, I was talking to like a mutual friend of ours named Jade, or something like that. And she was like, "Oh, that was you? You're the one who got him into that? Oh, okay." Because she's, you can't tell her. There's not a thing that exists about music or underground music or anything that she doesn't already know. So yeah, she was like, "How the fuck did Zach get into this?"
Nice.
You know what I mean? She's like, "Oh, that was you."
Where the hell did you find that at?
But since I was tripping on Yellow and Green so hard, I was like, well, maybe I'll like their other stuff. And I think I tried listening to Red, and I have like this very like specific memory. Like I think I listened to the whole thing. I don't remember if it was Red or Blue, but
Okay.
I listened to like the whole thing like on the drive, and I was like, man, no, no. Which is really funny, because I think one of the things that turned me off, I was like, dude, this isn't that. There's no choruses like this. I don't like these vocals. I don't like this. What the fuck is this? This is not what I'm here for, right? But something that has happened since then.
What had happened
is I've gotten into like doom. I've gotten into doom metal and stoner rock and stoner metal and all these things, which I wasn't into then. I wasn't into that stuff, circa 2013 and
Right.
or whatever. And now I'm like really into like the band Conan, and I'm really into getting people hip to that band or whatever. Have you listened to those guys?
No.
So they tuned down to like Z- or something. And
You got a negative A.
yeah, like they just play basses. And
They take the next logical step from what Meshuggah did.
kinda,
Basically,
yeah. And so, they're like, just,
I see what you mean.
and like the vocals are, like the vocals are like really high, and like kind of strained, so, sort of like The Warning, you know what I mean?
Okay,
like that
yeah,
sort
I
of
was
stuff.
gonna say.
But more like intense, right? And I've heard like Funeral Doom and stuff like that, like where you have like that kind of vibe with harsh vocals. And so now I sort of expanded my language, I guess, to where like that doesn't feel as jarring to me for
Right.
those things to go together.
Gotcha.
Right. Whereas I think when I tried to listen to Red the first time, it was like hearing someone over Black Sabbath or something.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
was really, I was like, why? Why would you do this? This is nonsense. You do that over, you don't do that over, you don't fucking over that. What the fuck is wrong with you? You fucking idiots. These kids today,
I guess I'm just getting old.
Yeah, because I was never older. I was never crankier and older in my life than I was when I was
When you were
28.
like 30 years.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess I really want to know then, how did you feel about these EPs then?
I think they're some of the best shit I've ever heard.
Oh yeah. So all three of them?
So they all this is something I wanted to talk to you about because they all, I don't know if I would feel this way if I was able to sort of experience each one of them sort of like for months and months at a time, and then experience the next one, and then experience the next one.
Just sit with one for a while and
it's
really dig into, because there's a lot going on in all of them.
Right. There's an incredible density of ideas.
There's only 3 tracks on, or there's 3 and 2 tracks, but it ends up being like 20 to 25 minutes each.
Yeah, so, like the whole thing is
something like that.
Is like 45 or 50 minutes.
Yeah,
you do the whole sequence, right?
Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah.
And maybe 55. But each song has such a huge density of ideas.
Yeah,
it's incredible. But it all kind of I loved all of it, but it almost feels like one album to me.
It kind of does, yeah.
It was hard for me to sort of feel like a conceptual line between first and second, and then the stuff on Gray, whatever.
Yeah, and actually initially, first was released in 2004, and then second was released in 2005.
Yeah.
And then I forget when the next one, maybe 2006 or maybe early 7. But when they eventually re-released that, they put first and second together as one thing. And that makes a lot of sense.
It sure does.
Because it's basically a continuation.
Right. It feels like they had all of that written, and it was like, well, we only have enough money to do the first 3.
Yeah, something like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Which I have to say, like, that was like a cool thing. Like, listen to it, I'm like, man, this is so fucking smart. Like, this is just the smartest fucking way to do this. Like, if you're like a band and you know you're a good fucking band, and you've paid your dues in other bands, and you are going to be able to be on a label, just do an EP, because you're only going to be paying support slots anyway. You're only going to be playing 20 or 30 minutes anyway. You know?
Yeah.
Like, do that fucking EP and go tour your fucking ass off. And then do another EP and tour your fucking ass off, and, like, you know, have your shit nailed.
Yeah. If you've got like 20 minutes worth of music and that's what you're going to be playing, then that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, have that 50 minutes worth of music written or whatever, so you can do your hometown headline show when you need to, or whatever. But you have that, like, it's like a comedian, you got a solid 10, and then you got
type 5, type 10.
Yeah, and then you got that other shit you're working on.
Right.
You know what I mean? That you're trying to iron, and then when you record it, it'll, you know what I mean? Because you've worked it out live, it'll be, fucking amazing, right?
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, man, it's just like that's just so fucking smart. That's the way everyone should fucking do it. Or, I mean, in an ideal world, you know what I mean? That's.
You can see the reasoning. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, like, instead of just like, all right, man, well, we're going to put out a fucking 70-minute opus, our first album, take over the world, But
you wait till the 4th album to do that, or third album.
Well, if it just felt like so specifically geared around a band that knows they're going to tour a lot.
Yeah.
Is how it felt.
Yeah, and yeah.
Now, I didn't go and, like, look up their early tour schedules, watch me, like, be told full of shit, and they, like, didn't play a show until 2009 or something stupid.
I'm pretty sure they played a lot of shows.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure too, but
I don't know if it's positive, but yes. I think they were one of those bands, absolutely, that was just, like, touring their fucking asses off.
Just, like, on every, opening up for every tour, Yeah. So... But yeah, do they feel like they have distinct, like, does second feel distinct from first to you at all, or?
Way less so. So the thing that really struck me is I've gone back and listened to first and second a lot over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I had never really messed with Grey Sigh all that much, which is a split EP, like we said, that they put out with a band called Unpersons, who I've never heard of, and I actually haven't listened to the songs either yet.
I haven't either, but I wasn't going to say it
Maybe I will at some point, but like, I came for the Baroness. You know,
We're here for the Baroness.
That's what we're gonna do. But there's like 2 tracks on there. It's like 20 minutes. One's 13 minutes and one's 7.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fucking music. And I had listened to this at some point, and I hadn't really gone back to it. And going back to it now, I kind of remember why. And it's like, it kind of just sounds like a demo. To me, it's really meandering and kind of unfocused, and it sounds like they could have polished it up a lot. It sounds like they had some cool ideas, and they just didn't get a lot of time to work on it or something. It sounded very demo-ish to me, though. And that remembering now, I'm like, yeah, that is what I sort of remember.
It's hard to tell if it's demo-ish or if it's just spacey.
I think there are aspects of both.
For me. But I'm less familiar with like their entire catalog, you know. So
I mean, I think you're not wrong. I think there are aspects of both, but like if you want to compare directly with first and second, because there are some other places where you look at this EP, the Grey Sigh EP, and they're like AKA third, because first, second, third, and I'm like, well, if you especially considering it in that light, it seems like they just had some demo songs they just wanted to do something with.
Right, it was like, hey, do you want to do a split with this band? Oh yeah, sure, we're working this shit out. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
you know. And did I read that like it was like a single take or some shit, or was that like second or something?
I think that was second, because I think I remember seeing that as well.
Yeah, because one of them felt
like knocked it out super quick.
Yeah, there's like, oh, that feels like they recorded all of that at one time.
Yeah, I think that's the case. But let's see here.
I remember reading that about one of them. I think it might have been second.
I think
it was recorded in one session.
Yes, second.
The exception of the vocals. Blah, 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 blah.
Yep. But I mean, yeah, like you said, first and second, they sound like they could have just been an album.
Yeah.
Essentially, they sound very similar. The production sounds very similar. Like
it does.
A similar caliber.
Yeah.
But then third has a lot of differences to it, and to me, I don't know. I guess there's a reason I didn't really go back to it very much. It's like,
sure,
it sounds kind of unfinished, and it's fine.
Right, I gotcha.
But but first and second they could have put out as an album, but yeah.
Right, yeah. So some of the things that I put out, like the thoughts that hit me while I was listening to first, were like, this is some guitar ass music.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and all of their stuff is very guitar centric.
But not in a bad way, obviously. Right, yeah. Things we already talked about. That's true for all of their stuff. Is that it doesn't sound like anyone else. They don't use traditional song structures, but it's still very easy to listen to, and it has lots of hooks.
Yeah,
and like to do all three of those.
Yeah,
is really that's fucking wow. Is what that is, you know.
Yeah. All the stuff on first and second, it does have all this stuff, and it's to me it's maybe not as obviously it's not like as polished or fluid as some of their other stuff will become later on. It sometimes it feels more like constituent parts put together as best they can, but they're still done really well.
Yeah, it kind of so another thing I wrote down here is like this feels like a very live record. You know, like I'm not saying they did. I don't know how to record, but it has that feel like they played in the room together.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of like.
Well, if they did it all in one take, I get it. It probably was pretty live.
Sure, yeah. Well, it was like, oh, you wanted that? Oh, you wanted that snare drum louder there? I guess you should have fucking played it louder. You know, like that. You know. So an engineer friend of mine talked about like that jazz records are the easiest records to mix because those musicians basically self-mix as they play. And he's like, he's like, I barely have to touch the faders after, you know, when I record a live jazz, when I record like a jazz, you know, trio or quartet live in the studio, you know, when I'm done to mix it, I barely have to touch the faders.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, that's like built into the structure, right? Of jazz.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, but sort of like referencing this idea that we've talked about before of sort of like what makes an album great, you know, and or like the criteria, right? You know, like songwriting, production, performance, right? Performance. And these first two EP, well, really all three of them feel very performance heavy. like not to throw shade to the songwriting,
Yeah.
right? But the magic in these is the way that they're playing these things.
Yes.
The individual unique phrasing of them as a band, as musicians and whatnot, and that unique execution that only comes from sort of rehearsing the same songs with the same 4 people 100 times before you go into the studio, you know?
Yeah.
That to get that unique, all that unique kind of like push and pull and all that sort of breath and life into the takes and whatnot, you know? It feels very performance centric, where that's what you talk about. Like that's like what makes a great jazz album is all performance, because sometimes you're playing songs that it's not about the song, right? It's not the song craft
Right.
per se, you know.
It's about the performance.
It's the performance and the impromptu story with the human tension and push and pull that you're able to tell with your instrument there in the moment, you know, and all that sort of stuff, you know?
Yeah. I think that's exactly spot on. Because something that I have always, definitely throughout these through the EPs and throughout Red, and less so, I think they kind of really came into their own on Blue, which we'll get to later. But especially when I got way into Red, one of the things that I thought, and something that I mentioned when we saw them the first time, was like, I think that they really understand how they want to sound. They're just not quite there yet. And to me, all these EPs and this album and Red all sound like they have a very clear, like, they're really trying to do something.
Yeah.
And they can't always quite nail it 100% on the grid lines, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But they're doing as close as they possibly can.
They know where they're going, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so all these performances feel like they have intention behind it all.
Of
and
course.
They're going for something.
Yeah. Well, and it feels like they arrive at it on Red almost to me. Like,
I think they do.
Like
yeah.
Red feels like a more, like, because I would say the songwriting is better on Red than you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go that far. I don't want to go that far to say better. I would say maybe more focused.
Yeah,
because there is a magic and a charm to the songwriting on the EPs. I don't want to take away from that.
Totally. Yeah. They just do some things differently on the EPs that they sort of evolve.
Yeah.
On Red.
And another thing I said was like straight up hardcore and black metal in this bitch, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
You know, like on that second song, like 20 seconds in, when it's like, I was like, oh, that's a black metal riff. Is he gonna? Oh, there's a blast beat. There's a blast beat on the Baroness
song. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my fucking God, you know? There's a moment in the second EP where there's just straight up, and I'm like, oh my God, these guys. You guys.
These first 2 EPs especially, there are like such, it's so firmly rooted more in early like sludge, and like there's even like a little bit of doom thrown in there
for sure
and there.
Yeah, and like now that I've like listened to a few, now that I consider myself a Crowbar fan, you know, and I've listened to some Crowbar records and whatnot, and like the language of this is a lot more. I get it.
More familiar now.
Yeah. Whereas I didn't get it, you know, 10 years ago when I tried to listen to it. But yeah, I was like, I genuinely love this. I was not expecting it to be this heavy.
Yeah. This is like, I think by far their heaviest shit. It's especially vocal wise. Like this is like the most harsh vocals that they ever do.
Right. And they're tuned pretty low, right? Are they like, I think I read like drop B. Or something like that, or
I don't know.
Drop A.
I didn't actually look, but that's what it kind of feels like.
But what's funny is like they're the first. I think they're the first metal band in history that as their career progressed, they started tuning up. You know.
Yeah.
Because I think what I read is like most of their recent stuff is like in D standard.
I think it's just in D at this point.
You know what I mean? And it's like that said no metal band ever.
Right. Yeah, because they are from, I think they are billed from like Savannah, Georgia, but they also did a lot in, I think, Virginia, and I think some of them now they're based in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
These days, and I think they were at some point back then too. But they sort of came up in the same scene as like Mastodon and Kylesa and all these other bands like the High on Fire and shit.
Gotcha.
And they played with all those bands coming up, Clutch as well.
Sure.
So they were in that like stoner rock, sort of sludgy space back then. And so that was something I thought about going back to First and Second as well. Was like First came out in 2004.
Right.
Like what? If I had found this shit in 2004, how would that have hit me?
Right. How do you think it would have hit you?
I think I would have fallen in love with it. Like I think I would have been way into it.
Yeah, it's hard to know
because it's still there's still so much unique weird shit going on.
Yeah,
I think that's what would have caught me more than anything back then. Is
for sure
all the weird, unique changes, and because even on these first two EPs, they're still doing the guitar harmonies at weird intervals. They're still doing the vocal harmonies here and there. It's all screamy here. It's a little lower and screamier here.
Right.
But like I said, all those constituent parts to what Baroness would become, it's all here.
Right, and it's that is always an interesting thing to like speculate on, because I feel like, you know, because the music we were making together at that time was all about faster, more intense, more very how to make things more angular and like more sort of intentionally like obtuse, but still have a hook, and still like how can we play like our priority was, okay, well, we want it to be fast, we want it to be intense, we don't want it to sound like anyone else. And for us to do that with the tools that we had, that meant that we played a lot in odd time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We wanted to keep things as interesting as we could, and that was kind of one of the main ways that we knew how to do that.
Right. That was the tool that's the tool that we were using the most when we stopped being a band.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to speculate on like when we would have run dry on that well, you know, and when we would have tried just writing on a computer, and when we would have discovered we didn't have the patience for that. and then when we would have like just like, well, what if we played as slow as we could?
Yeah, right.
Because I feel like that's what would have happened. I feel like, you know, that would have been
extremes. Yeah.
Like that somewhere around 2008, we would have like flipped a switch and like become like our version of a sludge band.
Yeah, maybe.
It's like we're gonna go slow as we can imagine. Gung gung ba gung gung. It's not even slow. This is.
So there are parts on these EPs where they do go incredibly slow, and especially in the second half of Son of Sun, the second track on Second.
Oh, where the whoom,
doom.
Oh, that's so good.
And then like 10 seconds later, doom.
It's
and then
so cool.
It's like 2.5 minutes of that, and then comes the second part of the song, which is totally different. And I was like, is this another track? No, it's the same fucking track.
That is so cool.
It's so good.
I love that fucking moment in that song. It's so rad.
Because some you can tell it's very, like, again, like very performance centric. Like sometimes it's like slightly off.
Yeah.
It's like staggered a little bit here and there. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, and another thing, I was like, I'm like speculating as I was like, I'm excited to hear the rest of it and speculate why I didn't like it then. And something I put here is like, I imagine it wasn't heavy enough, but also like not melodic enough, like Yellow and Green, you know. So like this stuff at the time, 2012, when I tried.
Compared to Yellow and Green, this is very much not very melodic.
Right.
That album is so incredibly gone that direction.
Right.
That you can't compare. Yeah.
Yeah. But then it also wasn't like as heavy as whatever the fuck I was listening to in 2012. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it very much falls into a weird.
But you know what, man? That was during a period where I wasn't really listening to a lot of heavy stuff. I remember that was when I got into Ghost.
Okay.
So, Anyway,
don't
I don't know if I was listening to much new heavy stuff during that time period anyway. But looking back, I think the main thing is that I was unfamiliar with that. Like I said, that language, the sort of the language of sludge and stoner and and all that. So it was very jarring for me.
Right. I mean, I could see that because it does fall into a very weird. Like Red is not a very heavy album.
I feel like it is.
All things considered. Well, traditionally heavy.
Sure.
Let's say.
Fair enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not. There's a lot of they fall back or they fall into like a major chord a lot of the time.
Okay.
Which is very strange to do in the first place.
Okay.
And it doesn't sound as like dense in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And it's not as overtly screamy as the EPs.
Sure.
And they just sort of like you said, they sort of honed, or I don't know, I forget how you said it earlier, but focused.
Yeah.
They were able to focus their songwriting more, and
we're back.
Take your word for it.
What were we saying?
Yeah, I think it's overall, especially
focused.
Yeah, especially compared to the two EPs, this doesn't sound as, and I think the stuff at the time, it's not as traditionally heavy. Because the same year, again, the Blackening came out the same year. And then in 2009,
right,
was Locust or 2010?
That might have been 11. That
was it 11? Was it that much later? Okay.
That was 11.
So either way, the Blackening had made its mark on us.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
well, and it's sort of like that was.
And Obscen came out around the same time as well.
Obscen was 08.
08, yeah.
Yeah, that changed everything.
So.
Especially for like that. That was a fucking gauntlet thrown down. And I think it hit us less. But for people younger than us, man, that was
yeah. like a watershed moment.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about that before, but like just that specifically that year, 2008, like the fucking like Obscen and I think the Faceless Planetary Duality came out, Origins, Antithesis,
right?
Niles, Those Whom the Gods Detest, and I feel like there's another one. Obscura's Cosmogenesis,
right?
Like these records that are just like the motherfucking pinnacle,
right?
And of sort of like precision and brutality and and technicality, all come out in this same fucking year, and these poor fucking like 13-year-olds are like, fuck,
I gotta do this. Oh no, gotta do my homework.
God damn it, man! 6 months ago, I heard Metallica for the first time. Now I got
doon doo 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 doo. No, wait, no, not this.
Yeah, you know, whatever.
Oh, fuck. But yeah, I mean, Red is just not as, it's not a heavy album in that way.
Right.
But it does so many interesting things.
I think I was just still on that, like, heavy has to be, it has to be more. It has to be more. It has to be more. And anytime I wanted this kind of heavy, I wanted Sabbath.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I would go, that's because I was
you already had that.
Yeah, I was
basically
a Sabbath fanatic in high school, so I would go to that.
Right.
And so,
yeah, I guess okay, because I was always a Sabbath fan, but never like a fanatic. Yeah. And at some point, I went, like I said earlier, like I went looking for more stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. That's what we need to do. We need some fucking Black Sabbath episodes.
We need some fucking Black Sabbath episodes,
dude.
Yeah.
Dude, there are some strange periods in their career after Ozzy leaves.
Oh yeah.
You don't even know.
Oh, I don't.
You have no fucking clue.
I know that they're strange, but I don't know the depths to which they are strange.
You have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm gonna give you shorthand here. Okay.
Elevator pitch.
After Dio leaves.
Oh, after Dio leaves, even.
Okay.
Oh shit.
So, Geezer and Tony. They're like, hey man, you know what would be awesome is if we started a band with Ray Gillen from Deep Purple, and they write and record this record, and they're like, this is a new band.
Oh right.
And the record label's like, fuck you, that's a Black Sabbath record.
Right.
And
Yes.
if you listen to it expecting it to be a Black Sabbath record, you are like, fucking excuse me? But if you listen to it like, oh, this was supposed to be a new band, then it's really kind of fucking cool. And there's also like all this live. There's like really great live versions of did I say Ian Gillan?
Yes.
Sorry.
Ian Gillan.
Yeah, of him doing like the classic Sabbath songs, and it's fucking amazing.
Oh wow.
It's like he does a better job, I feel, with the classic Sabbath stuff than like Dio does.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't really like the way that Dio did the classic Sabbath stuff.
Dio's a very different thing.
It's so different.
He's so different.
It's so different.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
He's amazing in his own right.
Absolutely, he is.
Yeah.
No shade towards Dio. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To be fair, Ozzy's a fucking weird vocalist.
Yeah. Like Dio's Dio's like too good. Like his voice is like too pure.
Exactly.
And like too clean.
He can do too many things.
Yeah.
He tries to do them with Ozzy's vocal styling.
Exactly, yeah. And it's like you have to do like to make Sabbath songs sound right. You almost have to do like on the vocals. You have to do like the right kind of nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you add like too much, like generals gathered in their masses, like if you add too much on it, you're like fuck off, like just fucking die. That's not what that song's supposed to be. You know?
Only Mike Patton can cover that song.
Well, but he takes it to fucking Mike Patton places, so it's okay.
I know. Yeah, that's great.
But so then that's a shit show. So then like, all right, Tony's like, all right, man, I want to do a solo record. I'm gonna work with Glenn Hughes, and I'm gonna do like a solo fucking like pop rock record, and I'm gonna call the band Seventh Star. It's gonna be Tony Iommi's solo record.
This was in the 80s sometime.
Yeah, like the mid 80s or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna make some 80s ass fucking pop record, or not pop record, but like a And the record company's like, fuck you, that's a Black Sabbath record called Seventh Star. So there's this but like when you think about like what's happening while that is absolutely destroying the brand of the band. Like that's destroying the name Black Sabbath and making the name mean less and less and less every time.
Which is like the absolute opposite intention of what these goobers are trying to get done.
Yes, it's a terribly short-sighted decision for a record company to make. So it's something like 7 years or some shit before they make Eternal Idol, which was like the first record that like Tony meant to be a Sabbath record since Dio left or something. It's, you know what I mean? And you listen to it, you're like, oh, that is a Sabbath record. And so it's anyway.
Weird.
It's bananas. But yeah,
Tony did eventually get his solo album.
He did.
It was like 97 or 8 or something. Iommi.
Yeah. And like, oh, we should just have everyone sing on it.
Yeah, just get a bunch of guests. Get fucking Dave Grohl in there and Phil Anselmo. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So,
but yeah, heavy. When you wanted heaviness, you went to Sabbath at that point,
or when I wanted that like groovy,
that specific type,
right? Or that down record. You know what I mean? So I wasn't like,
you weren't averse to that style. You just already kind of had what you,
or
you had a preconceived notion of what it should be.
Well, and it's almost like before the sort of the brakes fell off, or like I had gotten, or things had hit the end point of that, like how fast and how brutal and how precise can you get? Mm-hmm. It was just sort of like before my mind got open to that kind of heavy. Which didn't really happen until really within the past, I guess, like 4 or 6 years or something like that, is whenever I start to really open my mind to that, that kind of heavy. Like I got really, like last year was when I went down the big doom metal rabbit hole.
Right.
And so yeah, I think that was that was an aspect of why I didn't get it.
Sure.
Another funny thing that I said about during the second EP was, I was like, this is like Queens of the Stone Age, but they're not trying to write music for girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Kinda.
let me elaborate on what I'm saying there, okay? There's a specific modern drummer interview with Josh Homme and
The drummer?
yeah, his last name's Castillo, I think.
Oh, the current drummer? I don't know who the current or the modern. I don't know who the modern Queens of the Stone Age drummer
I'm so
is.
sorry, because this guy's legit as fuck.
They've had they've had a few drummers over the years.
Yeah, and all their drummers are legit as fuck. But
Yeah. I mean, they started out with they didn't start out, but they had Dave Grohl. At some
yeah, and I think they've had John Theodore as their live drummer for a couple times, and that guy's from another planet. Okay, I'm gonna slow down.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I need to get this guy's name right because it's fucking important. Joey Castillo. Okay,
There you go.
From 2002 to 2012. Dude's legit as fuck. I wonder if he's related to Randy Castillo, who was Ozzy's drummer for a long ass time.
Right.
Anyway, but Josh Homme says some shit in the interview of about like it's a bad sign if there's too many girls or if there's not enough girls at your show, and that you need to write music that like girls want to dance to or something like that. And it's like it's a whole bit that he like gets into or some shit like that. Like you know, like yo, I'm in. If there's too many dudes at your show, you're not cool. You know, like that kind of shit that you can imagine Josh Homme saying. And I'm like, that's real funny because most of the people I know who love Queens of the Stone Age are fucking dudes, you idiot.
Yeah.
But I
fucking love that band, but man,
they're incredible.
He says some stupid shit sometimes.
They're incredible. They're an undeniably incredible band.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm referencing when I'm like, oh, this is like Queens of Stone Age, but they're not trying. But like they don't care how many dudes like their music. Maybe that's the funnier way to say it.
It can be a sausage fest. Bring it on.
Yeah. They're like, you know, but because you get like the same kind of like grooves sometimes. You get like the same kind of like intricacy, the same kind of catchiness. And whatnot, but they don't hone it down to like a digestible pop song the way that Queens of the Stone Age does.
Yeah.
Like whiffs, you get like whiffs of it. You know what I mean? Like just there will be just like a doo-goo back, you know, or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. You're a fan of both bands.
There's some, I haven't really thought about it very much, but there is some intangible, or maybe it is very tangible. I don't know. There's an aspect of that style of rock, of that like stoner rock.
Yeah.
Just take stoner rock, for example. And there's some aspect of that is undeniably like catchy.
Yeah.
But it's also undeniably like heavy.
Right.
But not in a this is loud and fast type of way.
Yeah.
Or even low type of way.
Right.
It just has like a gravity to it. And I don't really know how to explain that.
For sure. There's a weight.
Yeah.
To it, you know.
And I don't really
mean?
know what it is about it that makes that happen, even necessarily. But all the best music in those genres has that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the Zeppelin thing, right? You know what I mean? Like Zeppelin has
that same thing.
Has a weight.
Yeah.
Behind it, you know.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay. Cool, man. That's all I had. So.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say about the EPs.
Okay.
Dig in a little deeper. Or did you have anything else? Or you want to dig in deeper to Red?
No, that's pretty. Yeah. Let's go that route. That's pretty much all I had as well.
So there's a lot of like general thoughts that I had that sort of apply. Again, that's what's kind of tricky is like everything I say about any song applies to every song. You know, but sort of
which is interesting because this is all things considered. I feel like this is a pretty diverse set of songs.
Yes. I guess like what is good about them as a band is good in every song.
Okay. Yeah.
On this album,
I see what you mean.
And on the EP.
Yeah.
It is what I mean.
Okay.
So, for instance, like one of the first things I wrote while listening to Red, and again, like, but this is true of the EPs as well, is that it's so cool to hear two guitars panned hard left and hard right. I always listen to shit on headphones.
Yeah.
But they're playing different things, sometimes really different things.
Yes.
And that is so fucking cool. And it's not played perfectly together.
No. Sometimes it's even a little discordant.
Yeah. And like, and when it's like a harmony, even but they're playing like the same rhythm, but they're playing it like at intervals apart. Sometimes it's a little flammy.
Yes.
But it makes it sound huge.
It does.
It's you know.
That's that performance centric thing. I think that goes with that you're talking about. Like they don't do things because you think about dual guitar harmonies and you think like, you know, Priest or Maiden or Metallica.
Right.
And I think maybe this is closest to some Metallica stuff. And specifically, I'm thinking of like the solo in like Master of Puppets.
Okay.
The slow part, the do 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 do, because they play it at kind of a weird interval there. But all of Baroness's shit throughout their entire fucking catalog is all at weird intervals.
Okay.
It's never like a fifth where it sounds like a metal thing.
Right.
It's always some weird thing that almost sounds like they're doing it wrong most of the time, but they make it work.
Yeah.
It's just like on this edge of like, are you fucking up? No, you're just doing something different.
Do you know what intervals they're using?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't think it's always.
I wonder if it's like a fourth or.
I think a lot of the times it is actually close to the same, but I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I've never looked into it.
Gotcha.
But it is something that you don't associate with like, man, this sounds fucking cool or metal traditionally.
Right. This doesn't sound metal. Right.
Yeah. But it's just an interesting thing that they do, and sometimes it almost sounds wrong, like I said.
Right, dude. I was listening to this random podcast with Andy Sneap. Okay, who is like do you know who Andy Sneap is? Okay, modern metal production is kind of his fault.
Okay, so his fault.
He makes incredibly precise sounding recordings. I can't think of like exactly like what his first, like whenever we all sort of learned who he was.
Okay.
As a producer, but he started playing with as Judas Priest's guitarist.
Okay, I thought you were about to name a band like as Eden Burns, but as Judas Priest.
As Judas Priest.
Yeah. Okay, anyway.
And so...
Huh, damn.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, like Early Testament, or, you know, Nevermore, Testament 2001. This is mixing. Okay, he mixed like Opeth's Deliverance.
Okay.
You know, Arch Enemy.
Okay.
Exodus. You know, okay, a mixed and mastered Kill Switch Engage. End of Heartache.
Okay.
Okay, so like as you start to get that modern metal sound, he's a big part of like that clarity and that precision and fullness of the modern metal sound is Andy Sneap.
I see.
But anyway, so but then he became Judas Priest guitarist, blah blah blah. But he was talking about like when they record like Halfer's vocals and with the, you know, because the same dude, I don't remember his name, he's produced like every Priest album for like 20 or 30 years or some shit. But the like there's like a Priest harmony. There's like, okay, so we're back. So anyway, I was talking about Andy Sneap.
Yes.
And I wrote it down, but it's in my like notes on my old iPhone or whatever. So I can't tell you exactly what it was, but there's like all right, so when we record Halford's vocals to get that Priest sound, here's what the intervals are.
Yes.
And like you do a pass and it's something like, okay, like the note, like the octave, and like the third and the and the sixth and the third above. It's something.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was. Okay. I don't remember what it was. Don't fucking quote me on it. Blah 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 blah. But it's like some very specific, non-obvious combination.
Okay.
Of intervals that make that like, you know, Priest sound.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like, man, that's fucking fascinating.
Yeah.
They had a recent album came out a few years ago called Firepower, which is amazing. It's
sounds like a Judas Priest album name.
It does the Priest thing better than it does the Priest thing exactly how I want Priest albums to do it. You know what I mean? So is it
Halford?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, they have buried Tim Ripper Owens albums. Like they act like it just fucking didn't exist. They just throw it, you know, poor fucking guy. Like they don't.
I've told you about the fucking album review show by the 2 Minutes to Late Night guys that I listen to all the time, and they did Drugulator.
Yeah,
the Tim Ripper Owens album, and they fucking loved it.
Dude, that guy is...
Apparently it's great. I remember it being pretty good back then.
Man, Priest is an interesting band that I think there's very like sort of specific reasons why we don't... People our age don't, or a lot of people our age don't have like a really strong association with Priest.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's...
I mean, by the time we came up, they had kind of already passed in a way.
Not really.
I mean, kind of the same way as Iron Maiden in a way. Like they didn't really, but
they were having lineup drama with their original singer not with them in the 90s.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes even going as far as like, all right, well, we're not a band anymore. We're on hiatus or whatever.
Right.
So that's affecting their ability to tour. So their ability to be seen by us young kids going to concerts, blah, blah, blah.
That's true.
But also uniquely with Priest is that they are this weird band where they have like 3 songs that literally everyone has fucking heard. Like Living After Midnight and Breaking the Law. Or I don't know, whatever. But whatever.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And like
Painkiller, probably.
Maybe not that one. But those 2, for sure, everyone has literally heard, like literally, and so but they feel like that feels like classic rock.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like
that doesn't feel like metal.
One of the first times that I ever actually heard a Priest song was on Beavis and Butthead when they were watching the video for Breaking the Law, and they loved it. You know, Mike Judge loved that song, so he made them love that song.
Right,
like, Breaking the Law, that was a cool thing. I was like, fuck yeah, Breaking the Law, but this sounds like classic rock.
Yeah,
and it to me at the time it had just kind of. It was an old thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like, but so they didn't feel like we didn't experience Priest the way that people 5 years older than us would have experienced Priest, where they like went to a fucking Priest show and like, you know, like, and heard all of it.
Yeah.
And not just the songs that happened to be radio hits.
Right.
Because there was other stuff that they were doing in the 70s like like progressive as fuck. Like just like legit out there, you know what I mean? And that they'd been doing it and pulling on the thread since they were like so early on. Like 1973 or 74 or some stuff. It's banana sandwiches. But anyway, Priest is a really interesting band. Speaking of intervals.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yes.
And so then I also wrote like nice shaker at 3:27. So dude, anytime you have like something heavy or groovy.
What was this in?
This was in the first song, a Red Pinion.
Okay, Raise on Pinion.
Raise on Pinion.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the album's called Raise, right? Raise on Pinion.
And Red Pinion.
Raise Red on Pinion. And I'll raise you one red pinion.
One red pinion.
And
for your birthing.
So, Isaac. But anyway.
Nice shaker.
No, man, just someone comes up. It's just, and like, dude, if you can fucking execute.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you can like make a shaker fucking work or a tambourine.
They're building on this part for like 2 minutes or so, and then it finally kind of comes in with like the bass and everything in unison. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Oh, it's the kind of thing like you don't notice, but that's the art of the shaker, man. That's the shaker game. Is it's a thing that you know.
This subversive shaker.
Yeah, like the shaker in the tambourine game is all about like elevating everything in such a way that no one notices, but if you take it away,
right,
feels like something's missing.
Right.
You know, very very important. The shaker percussion, the shaker tambourine game. I've done gig. I did this one gig.
How about the cowbell?
Cowbell's very different. Totally different animal.
Okay.
Totally different animal.
Okay.
You motherfucker.
Well, so I sent you a link to that live Clutch show the other night where they
oh yeah.
Clutch streamed their entire concert from Baltimore, like very professionally done. It was like awesome to watch. But in the last couple songs, Mike Dillon came in on percussion, and in one of those songs, Neil Fallon grabs a cowbell, and he's doing the accents, and I'm like, oh man, I never even realized that's what was really going on there. But he's obviously doing it right there, and there it is. And to me, it kind of works in the same way, but maybe that's a very specific
Okay. Keep talking. Keep
sort of
talking.
thing. Well, shit, that was the end of my spiel about that. But I guess we're gonna talk about some percussion-related eccentricities here on the Richard Wooten podcast. Welcome. So like and subscribe if you haven't done that yet. And let's talk about more interesting musical stuff while Richard looks for something.
Yeah, while I look for my cowbell, which I can't find.
But yeah, go watch that Clutch show on their YouTube channel. That was like a 2.5 hour thing where they played their entire new album during the course of that show, and also a lot of old shit.
Did you like the album?
I haven't listened to the album itself in full yet.
Oh my god, it was literally right behind me.
There it is.
The whole time.
I didn't know you were looking for the cowbell. I was like, right there.
You saw it, right?
Like, what the fuck are you doing?
All right.
Okay, so anyway, cowbell
All right,
time.
we're gonna do a little cowbell talk.
Okay, cowbell hour, cowbell minute.
So, okay, right. So here's the cowbell thing, right? So a lot of times,
Tell me about the cowbell thing.
because I've done a lot of gigs as a percussionist. Okay, like a percussionist in a rock setting. Okay, which is
Right.
a very unique. That's a very unique thing to do. And I've done it in a lot of like contemporary churches too, which is again a really, really weird place to sit, you know?
Right.
But the whole purpose of it is what I said a second ago with the shaker and the tambourine is you want to add this thing that doesn't
It doesn't stand out too much.
doesn't stand out.
But it sort of.
Yeah, but just add a little bit of flavor, add a little bit of spice, add a little bit of texture so that something feels like it's missing if you take it away.
Sure.
That's your whole job as a percussionist, which was very difficult for me to learn because that's very different than the role of a drummer.
Right. That makes sense.
And so anyway, so like when people talk about cowbell shit, a lot of times like what they think about is they think of the fucking SNL bit.
Sure.
You know,
the Blue Oyster
like,
Cult.
That's even going over there. That's really loud. You know what I mean? But just a guy like
There's no getting around it.
hammer and quarter notes,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Will Ferrell and his fucking gut hanging out.
Right, yeah, which is hilarious, right?
Yes, totally.
And so supposedly the reason you hear that on so many fucking records, like in the 70s like that, is what someone was like, oh dude, that's because the fucking drummer in the band had shitball fucking tempo, and you've got like a fucking producer.
They needed like a makeshift
Yes!
metronome.
Yes,
essentially.
like you got the fucking producer like banging on the you know what I mean? I remember one of the most jarring experiences of my life was a fucking band director getting pissed at us for dragging. And so he grabbed a drumstick and he just beat the shit out of a music stand. Like the whole song, you know what I mean? And so,
Great.
but right. So that's like one thing you could, like that's one purpose of the cowbells, like play quarter notes, keep idiots on tempo.
Okay.
Right. But a guy, this guy, Benny Bloom, he plays trumpet in Lettuce. Now he'll do fucking cool shit because he's hung out with cool ass fucking percussionists. And so like, he'll play like, you know what I mean? And so when you're doing that, like I'm just holding a fucking cowbell thing, you can like control the length of the note. You can mute it. You can do.
Right. Because the more of it you grab, the less intense the sound.
Right. And so
Yeah.
if you want it, it just depends on the group. Like if you're doing something like in like kind of a, I wouldn't even fucking bring one to those like praise and worship kind of gigs because it doesn't, that kind of syncopation doesn't make sense in the tempos and the vibes they play in.
Sure.
No
place for it really in those songs.
Right. Some djembe in some verses, some shakers, some tambourine on the chorus, some extra cymbal crescendos, maybe some chimes, maybe some congas in the verses, maybe some mallets maybe bring an extra floor tom for some mallets if there's a heavy bridge. Like that's what that gig needs, right?
Yeah.
But there's a whole art to this thing, and there's a whole art to how you incorporate it into the drum set and all this sort of stuff. And then when you play in like those like kind of like funkier tempos, and you can get into like that, all that sync, and get into all that cool funky shit. So anyway, you mentioned cowbells.
Yes.
So I feel like I got to do like some cowbell PR,
Like a PSA.
Yeah, because everyone makes that stupid fucking joke to me.
Sure.
I can't tell you how many fucking times I have like my whole fucking percussion rig like set up, and some goddamn youth pastor wants to walk up to me. Dude, for 10 years I had to hear this joke. Okay? I need more cowbell. Like, you think you're the first person that's ever said that to me. People still say it to me.
If there's not even a cowbell present.
Well, there might have been. No, okay, hold on. They're like, I'm saying like you have your whole percussion setup and like a tiny.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay, I see.
But no, man, I set it up on my drum kit, and people still like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, dude, you fucking idiots. Anyway, so
maybe they're just trying to relate somehow, and that's you can try to
I'm
look at it from that direction.
I'm sure that's what it is. I'm sure
But
that's
also,
what it is.
shut the fuck up.
I'm sure that's what it is. And for me, at like a 27 like aggro kid, it was like, oh, you're not cool, fuck off. And like now, me as like almost 40, I'm like, I don't need any more friends. I've seen that too. Ha ha ha.
Still go the fuck away, but I'm not going to be as aggressive about it.
Yeah. Yep. If you need more cowbell, I got more cowbell. Ha 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 ha. Cool.
Okay. Well, anyway, the shaker in that part of that song on Red
amazing.
Does add something, absolutely.
It's
now,
amazing.
Thinking about it, I know exactly what you mean, and it does work.
So, at some point in the future, like, I'll be able to look back at all of these episodes and all of these thoughts, the smorgasbord of thoughts that I've put out there, which like this comprises all of the valuable things that Richard thinks he needs to say, and I'll be able to organize them.
That's what this is actually for, just to get a physical, or not a physical, but a catalog that you can actually, you know, put together in some actual way.
Right. It's like an inkblot test of what ideas of what are like the most important ideas in my head, you know. Oh, dude, that shaker. He heard a shaker and he talked for 20 minutes about. Oh, I guess that's important. Okay, cool.
Well, he talked for 20 minutes about a cowbell.
Yeah, so
it turns out
it's important to him. Okay, so here we get to the important part.
Okay,
you can I'll just show it to you.
Okay.
So
3:45. The voice enters in all caps.
Because that's the first time you hear him sing a note
on Red. That's the first time you hear him. So that I guess I can go into this real quick here. It's gonna apply to the rest of the album, but something that they do a lot on this album that they do on the EPs too, but it's so obvious on this album is that. Well, okay, first of all, there are instrumental tracks on this album.
Yes.
There are like half of the album is instrumentals. But in some of the tracks that aren't instrumentals, there are like 3 or 4 fucking minutes of them just doing instrumental shit.
Right.
And they just let it go. And they let it breathe. They let it develop.
Yes.
And it's so fucking good.
It really is.
Every time. And this is one of those parts. At the beginning of Raised on Pinion, the first like 4 minutes almost is just them developing this thing. This how to say, not a riff, but like a
motif.
There you go. This It's so good, and they do that throughout the whole album, and they just let things happen so naturally, and it's so interesting and good every time.
Right.
And this is one of those times.
Yeah. And I just imagine, like, I wonder what it was like if you were already a fan, because to me, that voice is that's what I was there for, right? You know what I mean? Like that's what I loved about Yellow and Green.
Yes.
So that is an essential element to the Baroness sound, which is not present on the first 3 EPs.
Right.
And so like this being, I was like, there's gonna be there's gonna be a moment when it happens, and I wonder when it's gonna be. Is it gonna be like, oh, in the middle of Red somewhere? Is it gonna not be till Blue? When is it gonna be? And that it just is like the first vocal that you hear on this record is like, we do notes now, motherfucker.
Yeah. Because on the EPs there is like guttural screaming.
Yeah.
And that's primarily what the vocals are made up of. I
Right.
don't know that there's any real singing. There's like some softer stuff on there, but there's none of this. They have a very specific, I made a note about it, but there's a unique like scream singing thing
Sure.
that he does.
Yeah.
And they do in unison sometimes. The original guitarist did it too with him, and then later on Peter does it in a very interesting, cool way. But they do a weird harmonic interval with their vocals.
Okay.
That other bands just don't do.
Okay.
And it's like there's a bass note, and then they go like ha ha, and it's not always an octave.
I see.
But a lot of times it is.
Okay.
And it has a cool effect, and it happens in a lot of these songs on this album. But yeah, the Baroness vocal
Right.
kicks in here.
Yeah. And so it was
It's not a harsh scream anymore. It's there's a
bellow.
There's a musicality to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
A bellow.
Well, you hear what his actual voice sounds like, and it's not as like clean as it is on Yellow and Green, but it's still there. It's not complete, like sort of. It's not completely masked behind like the guttural distortion or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was. So yeah, and it's just. It was really cool to sort. I'm so grateful that I got to like have the experience of starting at the beginning and leading up to this. You know what I mean? Because honestly, I think if I would have just started listening to Red, I don't think I would have. It would have meant as much.
That's interesting.
But starting with first
Yeah.
and second, and like seeing how much they lived in that space, and then having a sense of the line, you know, a sense of the progression, made it, you know. Like it made like that moment on this like have some weight behind it, you know?
That's cool.
Because it makes it feel so intentional because they've established that they can do other things.
Because it was intentional.
Yeah.
This was a change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this is what we do now.
Yeah.
And this is the first vocal you're hearing on the record. You know, deal with it, whatever.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, directly after that, they do go into like rise, odd pay, and the sort of screaming thing
Right.
again.
Yeah.
To the extent that they do on this album.
Sure.
Which is not a lot.
Right. Yeah, it's not like, and it's a nice halfway point.
Yeah.
Sort of between, you know, the first EPs and where they end up. It's
Yeah.
sort of what it feels. I'm excited to hear Blue, but we'll see. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wicked imagery in the lyrics, which we already talked about.
Yeah. The lyrics on a lot of these tracks are very. If you just like go look at them on like a lyrics site or whatever, they're very sparse. They're very.
Oh yeah.
Very little lyrics.
Yeah.
But like they get a lot out of them.
They really do.
in a really interesting way. Like.
Yeah.
None of these songs ever feel like barren. They never feel like empty.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah. Like, because a lot of times, well, and it's so rare for there to be so few lyrics, but them to feel so important.
Yeah.
And for it to feel as if, because it feels like this music was written with almost like no regard to the lyrics, and the lyrics were just put on afterwards. It almost feels like it almost does, but that's because the music feels so complete without the lyrics, right? But for there to just be like, yeah, we got one stanza for the 7-minute song.
Yeah.
And if for it to be like, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And we're going to do like some sick drum shit in here, and then we're going to do guitar harmony for a while. It's going to take like 2.5 minutes. And then we're going to come back with one more line, and then that's it. And do the outro.
There's so many ideas. It feels like they complete each idea.
Yes. Yeah.
And it never gets boring. It's fucking amazing. I don't know how they do all of those things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because, okay, Meshuggah, as a counterpoint, like, they complete those ideas, but they put you fucking through it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say you get bored, but you might get, like, bludgeoned. You might get exhausted.
The way that they pull you through those songs is, like, in a very aggressive, like, there's always a lot happening.
Yeah. It's like they grab you by the back of the head and they're like, I'm going to smash your face in the dirt.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to smash your face in the dirt at a 15-degree angle. Now I'm going to smash your face in the dirt at a 10-degree angle. And a 5. back to 15, you know, like, but it's just like, you feel beat up after they've gone through after they have completed that idea of playing 26 plus 6 over 4 or whatever they're going to fucking do, you know, and they do it. They're all its permutations and all it's this. And you're like, oh, they did that. They did it.
Yeah. Even in like the slowest parts of like where it's like doom, 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 doom. Like there's a lot going on there that you kind of have to engage with.
Yeah.
Whereas like some of this stuff you can just kind of like, it just kind of goes.
Right.
And
right.
It goes down easy. Sort of like you said earlier.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's very approachable, but still like always interesting. Somehow.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the birthing, I was like, these guitars at 135. And then it gets to the 2-minute mark. I was like, that's whenever it does like the drum, like kind of fall apart fucking thing.
Yeah.
I was like, these fucking drums, man.
Yeah. And they come back in and it's kind of like staggered, like.
Yeah. Fuck, man. That riff, dude. That was. But so okay, so this is kind of an interesting thought, right? Okay. And this applies to all of it. But this is where it occurred to me. It's like, okay, there are a lot of things. Okay, how did I say it? Okay, there's a lot of things that are good about this that are also good about Zeppelin. And there's a lot of things.
Zeppelin is a very good comparison to this, I think. I hadn't really made that comparison, but it really is a spot on.
But there's also a lot of things that are good about Baroness that are also good about punk music. And there's also a lot of things that are good about metal that are good about Baroness. And that is an interesting trifecta to pull from, because you have like sort of like it's groovy and it's huge and it's intricate the way that Led Zeppelin is.
Yes.
But it also has like this urgency that punk has.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of the right word. I didn't want to say sincerity, but like I use the word warmth, okay? As contrast to some of the like coldness that you get in metal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a kind of like a sterile thing that you might get in a metal song, like a, you know, like a Dimmu Borgir song, right? Like there's a certain, and that's part of it, is that like kind of emotion, like a soulless execution. And that's kind of the thing, right?
Yeah.
And you don't get that in punk. And so I use, but yeah, like that kind of like urgency that like, I don't know how else to say it, but I think you get what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you mean, and I also don't have a great way to describe it. But I think maybe the best way that I can say is like technically they're doing some of the same things that like metal does.
Yeah.
But they do it with the intention of making you feel a certain way.
Yeah. Maybe that.
Whereas metal just like it almost seems like a lot of metal just wants to feel really cool. Whereas this is like trying to get across an intentionality or like a feeling or
there's
a life,
like a swagger.
There's like a life to it.
Yeah. There's a you know, breath to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a thing to it, you know. But it still feels like they're using like the metal language.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, or like metal phrasing. They're the like non-traditional song structures thing that metal does a lot. So it's like you're getting like all of these elements sort of put together in a really, you know, unique way.
Their stuff is often categorized as like progressive metal in addition to sludge metal.
Because what the fuck else do you call it?
And I guess that's apt because it kind of is what it is. It's like they're using the vocabulary of metal, but they're doing it in a different way.
Right. That's exactly what you want to be. Like if you're like, all right, well, we're a metal band that has a career and is going to be around forever. You kind of want to get lumped into that progressive category because you don't fit anywhere else.
Right.
Meshuggah, Gojira, Opeth, you know.
And then because whatever else you do, it's not going to be like pigeonholed.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Oh, they're doing this now. Fine. They get to do whatever the fuck they want.
Obviously, they can do that. They're progressive.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah, man. Fuck. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really hard thing to pin down, but it to me it perpetuates through all their stuff.
Yeah. To me, there's a certain maybe this is the way to say it. There's a certain it's an emphasis on performance, in a sense. Like an emphasis on like I as this human being with my imperfections executing this music in a certain way. Like an emphasis on that that's that other layer of the punk thing. Whereas in metal music, there's almost like I use Dimmu Borgir as like the example of this, is that there's a platonic version of like a perfect form, like a platonic form, and an idealized version of every song that they write that exists in the ether. You know what I mean? That they like, and it's the composition, right? That is the perfect thing. And they are doing their best to manifest right, like that perfect, representation of that composition.
I understand what you mean. Yes.
And this is not that. Like,
right.
This is, like it's meant to encapsulate the beauty and the breath and the life and the individuality of the band members. You know, whereas like like a Fear Factory song is meant to sound like machines.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. A lot of metal is kind of meant to do that,
Yeah, yeah.
And so...
And like the distinction I guess I normally make or the way that I normally make that distinction traditionally, I guess, is like you can call that more like hard rock versus heavy metal. Because there's more of like a swagger, like a... God. I don't really know how to describe it. I don't have a good way to describe how this feels.
That term has been tainted for me.
I don't even know what it means, but like...
like you say hard rock, and I feel like I smell something bad.
That compost is coming through here.
Yeah. Like I imagine like the watered down version of like I want to see you rock.
Yeah.
Are you ready, San Bernardino?
Yeah. I don't know.
Or like the drummer playing and he's twirling his sticks in between every hit and like kicking his crash cymbal, and and it's like, we're here to rock.
No.
That's what.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want that.
We don't want you to groove a little. We want you to rock. Like, don't dance, rock. Like that's...
Come on, Philadelphia.
Yeah. So you say like hard rock, it's
yeah.
I know that term meant something at some time. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
That you know what I mean. But like now, you mean Buck Cherry? Come on now.
I guess maybe I do, but unfortunately, I'm not going to say that anymore.
But I think it's because like all stuff that is labeled hard rock to me feels extremely sterile to me.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but that's not what you would have said about hard rock in like 1975 or something.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about there, but there's a difference there. Like, I know what you're getting at there.
Right. It's fascinating that they hit like, all of they really hit all of those things.
Yeah.
And
they somehow managed to be all those things at the same time.
Right.
And it all works and it all sounds original.
Yes. Yeah.
Really.
It sounds unique.
Yeah.
It sounds and like that is always,
because for as much as I think the Zeppelin comparison is apt, they also don't sound like Zeppelin. But they carry the same vibe as Zeppelin feel. They carry that same like feelings.
There's a spirit to it.
Yeah.
Of like kind of unapologetically trying to accomplish this thing at a
that's a great way to say it, because some of their stuff, especially going forward, there's like a I don't want to say like anthemic, but like there's the same intentionality you get by writing something that is anthemic, where like you want someone to feel something, you want to rally someone behind something.
Yeah.
And a lot of their stuff going forward also does that,
Okay.
and it's a fucking cool effect, but it doesn't come off as like cheesy,
Yeah.
I guess. So
I think
some of the stuff on here does that, but like it goes forward more that way.
Okay. God damn it. This fucking camera. I guess I'm gonna order
try
like
to find one of these again.
3 more of these.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. In the Wailing Wintry Wind,
Yes.
I wrote. Oh, this is what I said this earlier, but like you can tell they put so much work in as a band. There are so many seamless trade-offs on what instrument has the lead voice, and it's also intricate, but none of it borders on brainy, and it's a really crazy balance to attain.
Oh,
and
man.
It's also fucking organic
Yeah.
too, you know.
Because the first like 3 or 4 minutes of that track is just instrumental.
Right.
It's the dun 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 dun. It just one of the signature Baroness things is like this goofy bend out of nowhere.
Okay.
But it always works.
Yeah.
It's always a cool thing when it happens.
Nice.
And they do it there, and they.
And then I wrote, God damn, these lyrics are good. Pure stank face. So like when those lyrics come in at the end, I'm like,
Yeah. Because it's just like incredibly groovy at that point. Just
right. It's
mega stank
it's so
face.
good. I don't remember. Have you watched the series Midnight Mass?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah.
Okay.
Oh hell
It's
yeah.
like one of the best single seasons of television ever made. in my opinion.
Anything that dude does, because he did the House on Haunted Hill.
Hill.
He did House of Bly Manor Haunting of Bly Manor. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to watch those. I haven't watched those yet. I'm like kind of worried. You know what I mean?
They're different things. They're more gothic horror than what Midnight Mass was.
I guess like I'm worried in the sense of like, oh, this is gonna fuck with me for days on end. In that sense.
Okay. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Don't forget that I once thought demons were chasing me and was running down the fucking street. So
Fair.
I'm sensitive to certain kinds of content, one might say.
Fair point.
They're
worth watching.
But there's one of the songs that like kind of the imagery, like it reminded me of like the setting of Midnight Mass, you know, because it's talking about like the sea and ocean and sailing, or like in like waifs and wharfs and shit.
Yeah, that was the birthing.
I didn't remember which one it was, but that kind of, or in even Wintry Wind a little bit as well. So his lyrics do such an amazing job at being so sparse but so evocative all the time. He like somehow is just able to paint. I mean, he's a fucking artist. He's a visual artist, right?
But lyrically also, he does such a great job at just like painting a picture for you.
He really. I don't know if there's been like more abstract lyrics. I'm kind of talking about Yellow and Green here, but like abstracts or lyrics that are that abstract that I feel that much.
No, totally. I know exactly what you mean.
Do you know what I mean?
And to me, this is going to happen on all their other albums too.
I'm excited.
Anyway, that'll come back later for sure.
So,
but this album specifically, there are just so few lyrics on every song that it's just amazing what he kind of gets away with doing that.
Yeah. For sure. I had Wander, you know, like Cockroach. Go ahead.
Yeah. There are a few instrumental tracks on here. Cockroach in Fleur is one of them.
Right, and that's like such a cool interlude. Blah,
it's
blah,
such
blah.
a cool, like a really cool acoustic sort of classical bent to it.
Yeah.
And I love the way it like speeds up the whole way through, and then it ends with the riff to what comes back later in Grad. The last track.
Okay.
Boom. Yeah. Very cool.
I don't normally like music that's this notey.
All their music is very notey.
For lack of a better word. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
there's always little tweedlies going on, or not even tweedlies, but like there's always a riff. There's always a melody.
Right, but it's always like a riff you could sing. Which is like I mean, I listen to a lot of music that has a lot of notes, but it's a lot of that low E. It's a lot of that open or that B or whatever, you know.
The quantity of notes. There's a lot of notes, but
Yeah.
here there are a lot of different notes.
Yeah, like next to each other, like in sequence.
Right. Like they're trying to be something.
Like melody or something. and I usually, but like it's just well, and the other thing is that like other music has that, but they just like have 3 sections that do it, and they just repeat those, and they don't fucking do that. They're like, oh man, here's like a whole album's worth of riffs and fucking 2 songs.
Right.
You know.
Right. I mean, it feels like they're trying to tell a story. In some regard, or like get across a feeling.
Sure.
In a lot of their stuff. Wanderlust is kind of the same way though, where it has a huge musical part, and then it comes into the actual.
I felt like I was starting to get hints of like yellow and green on Wanderlust a little bit. Like, I guess. Are we there yet, guys? Are we there?
A little bit. Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. Do you want to hear the one thing I didn't like?
Okay.
On the entire hour and 40 minutes. Okay.
Across these 3 EPs and 1 full album. Yes.
Okay. On Aleph. Aleph?
Aleph. It's like a character in Hebrew.
Right.
I believe. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So at 3:24, around there, I'll just pull it up.
Okay.
Okay. Try to get off mic here. This is the second time they do it in the song, but.
Oh, is it the?
It's the triplets.
Okay. Yeah.
Because the guitars aren't matching it. So.
Right.
And
okay.
And so it stands out and it fucks with the groove for me.
Okay.
It's the one.
Okay.
It's like the one thing.
I can understand that.
It's not even like I didn't. It's not you know like.
So if the guitars had chunked at the same time, it would have made more sense. Or
I just wish that he would have just done the same thing that he did the first measure, just or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We didn't need that variation there. I know that's y'all's thing, but you know what, man? The other 999 times that they did it throughout these 3 EPs in an album, it was gold and worked. So
Gotcha.
you know, man, I can't disrespect the process. And who fucking knows? Maybe if I listen to the album more, that might become like my favorite thing.
Maybe because I like it a lot.
Yeah,
so there's always a part that I look forward to, and that's all.
There's a thing that it's sometimes hard to tell if you don't like something or if you just noticed it when you're unfamiliar with a piece of art.
Right.
You know,
like that stuck out so bad. Oh man, it must be like wrong somehow or something.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of this quote. This thing I saw recently has been really rattling around in my head, which is that all unsolicited advice is criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no qualifications to that statement. Period. End of story.
It doesn't specify like constructive or non-constructive criticism.
Nope. And it's like, nope.
So, sure. Yeah.
All unsolicited advice is criticism.
Sure.
It's like, man.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, makes me think differently as someone who spent a lot of time as a teacher and then sort of becomes, you know, because you become like a professional advice giver. Essentially, that's like your job, you know,
right?
In a way, and so, like, I don't know. That's a thing that's like,
I think that's apt.
I agree. A lot of people get upset about that sort of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess like sort of in like I don't know. It feels like touch on the same spirit, right? Like just because you noticed a thing doesn't mean that it's bad, or doesn't mean that how it tracks to you is how it tracks to the artist or how it tracks to the audience. Blah 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 blah. You know, because this shit's subjective.
True.
But yeah, the outro on this song is amazing though.
Yes.
So.
Teeth of a Cogwheel.
All right, I got a lot to say about this.
My only note here was like so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Fucking love this track because it's so different to everything else on the album, but they do similar things in the future. And it's just such a fucking cool vibe.
Dude, okay, so this is what I said. You're going to like this. I said, all right, God damn it, guys. I already love the record. You didn't have to hit me with this.
But they did.
Okay, so yeah, this is so it is what they pull off here is really, really difficult to do. Okay, like this, like, oh, well, we're just gonna have extra drums, you know?
Yes.
And it's gonna and it's gonna elevate this.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna make it sound like a fucking mess, right? And it shows you how good of a fucking band they are. Like, so for instance, when those extra drums come in the first time, the bass part changes. Okay, like the bass goes.
I hadn't noticed that.
Goes from playing like long notes to playing like a short, like more syncopated thing with lots of space in the middle.
Right.
You know, lots of space in between the notes. So that leaves room for those drums to do the drum shit, right?
Okay.
Now then it builds back up to being full when they do it again towards the end, you know?
Right.
But it's sort of as like a build, right? And whatnot. And so it's because the thing, like the reason that it's one, there's a lot of reasons that it's really difficult to execute something like that and it work. Part of it is just EQ, right? Like you just, you know,
there's
like,
just not enough like sonic space, real
right,
estate, basically.
Right, for it to not just add mud.
Right, for like things to walk over the other things.
Right.
So
That's like one aspect. But then another aspect of it is really just like kind of like, especially when you're playing, when like you have like a kind of like a real band playing, because there's going to be like kind of like a unique grid, for lack of a better word, right? Because not everybody plays like even perfect 16th notes. You know what I mean? Like each band and each group, you know, you get together and like, you know, you're gonna find your own swing a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And so all that extra, and like if the guitar and the drums are a little off, sometimes even if the guitar and another guitar is a little off, that just makes it sound big and cool. Mm-hmm. Okay, the drums are a little bit behind the guitar. Oh man, it's big like Zeppelin or whatever, right? As long as it's consistent, of course, right?
Right.
But with drums, man, because it's an attack. It's just an attack. That shit can sound like a big pile of fucking trash falling down the stairs real fast. And it doesn't. It grooves and it elevates and it's emotional. It heightens everything, and it's really fucking cool. There's a reason you don't hear that done often. It's because it is fucking difficult to do.
Okay.
And it's why they had to like almost write an entire song around like that that idea happening.
True.
There's a reason that's not like, oh yeah, man, dude. Like there's a reason like you get to a chorus and it's real common to hear like a fucking tambourine come in, not a fucking floor tom. You know what I mean?
Right. Because that is what this song kind of is. That's what it builds to.
Right.
Is that part. Yeah.
Right. So, you know.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh, man.
Another tiny detail that I noticed on Appalachia.
Yeah.
So on 145, around 145-ish, everything is like yellow and green.
Do I recognize this?
So, but there's like a very sort of specific kind of drumming that where he's like playing like these upbeats on the hi-hat. And he's like this, like spots, you know, like
yeah.
Bah, bah, and it's just I don't know. It's a specific way to articulate that. It just reminds me of some of the way that he plays on Yellow and Green. And
I know what you mean.
And so I was like,
yeah.
Anyway, it was this thing I noticed that I wanted to mention to you.
Nice. Yeah, good call out. Hints of what's to come, for sure.
Yeah. At 450 on grad, I'm like, get your keys, assholes. Because that's like, it sounds like an organ or something that comes in. And I feel like it's like the first time you've heard like a keyboard It might not be the first time, but it's the first time I like really noticed. It felt really prominent of like this other voice that's not a guitar.
I think it might be the first time on this album that keys come in.
No, because that becomes like a kind of an essential part. I don't want to say like essential part of their sound, but a part of their sound that is consistent. You know, like it's not in every song, but it's
because
it becomes not uncommon.
Starting on, I can't remember how much of it is on Blue, but it's starting on Yellow and Green. They got a keyboardist to come in, I know, and play, and then when their current bass player joined, Nick, on Purple, he just plays keys.
Right.
So he just does that shit for him.
Right.
So that became part of their sound over time.
So that was another thing that I like keyed on.
Keyed in on. Nice.
So
yeah. I don't have anything specific to say about all of this. It's just all so fucking good.
It really is, yeah. I already mentioned it earlier, but it's like it's written. This is all written in a way that it could be instrumental. There's so many hooks, and every instrument has its chance to sing.
Yeah,
was a way that I had written it down here. You know, like that. I said it earlier, but like that kind of like that baton passing. You know what I mean? But it's like each instrument feels it feels so alive, and everything has like so much presence and so much personality, and the way that it just like a lot of music when you're putting music together, it feels like you're putting it together vertically. Okay. Okay, this is where the drums are, and then the bass sits here on top of the drums, and that's a nice foundation, and then you put the guitar on top of that, and then you put the vocals on top of that, and then you put a few little extra things there, and it like a sandwich, you know?
It's a club sandwich.
But this doesn't feel that way. This feels like it's a thread that's like tied and woven in and out, and it goes horizontally.
Yes, it feels like everyone is putting forth effort to pull the song through, basically.
Yeah.
It feels like everyone has a reason to be playing what they're doing to get to the end of the song. Or through the song.
A lot of things feel like you know, like you just like you make that sandwich, you know, and then you just like push start and like that's the song. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, or like if you wanted to stick with the thread analogy, it's like it's one thing and you just see it, you know, but this is like three-dimensional, and it's all, you know what I mean, and it's always like changing and weaving in and out, you know? Right. And it's fucking awesome. I'm
cool.
Absolutely deserved album of the year for 2007. I wish I wasn't such an asshole and I would have gotten hip to it then.
Well, whatever, it's still there.
So
get into it now. Yeah, I'm really glad you liked it, and their early stuff too. I kind of had a feeling you would like that early stuff more than this, but I'm glad that it all made sense.
Oh, okay. So you thought I was like going to get to Red and be like, meh?
Maybe. I could see how that would happen. But I'm glad that it made sense in context.
Nah, man. I loved it all, man. I'm really, and like I said, it kind of reminds me of like the first of like what it took for me to really get Tool. Was I had to start at the beginning.
Okay.
Like even when we were like in junior high, right? Because Einema came out.
Einema was out at that point,
and everyone got Einema.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, well, the Stinkfist song is cool, but I didn't really get it yet. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But then I went and got Opiate, and I like became obsessed, and like devoured that album.
Yeah.
And then I listened to Undertow, and then that progression, then like Einema was like, oh well, this is the best album ever made, you know.
Cool.
But I needed to see the line, you know.
Right.
There's other bands like that for me too, I'm sure, but that's one of the ones that's my immediate example.
Right.
That I think of, you know. So
cool. Yeah. That makes sense to me, but that's kind of all I got to say.
That's it.
I fucking really love this album. Red especially. The EPs are fantastic, but Red especially was just like, that was when like I said, that was what I discovered Baroness off of. And
right.
I was in love from then on.
Right. That one's gonna always be special to you because that was the one. That was the first one. That was like your introduction to the band. You know.
Yeah.
And they haven't disappointed you yet.
Not even close. Like
that's so cool.
There have been ups and downs here and there, but like not even close to disappointing.
Man.
How
rare is that?
And I think Isaac specifically off of Red is like their most like requested
Really?
song. Like every time you're at a concert, anytime there's like 10 motherfuckers going Isaac, and it's such a
That's great.
it's such a great song.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, and how rare is it too that you just don't? Because like a lot of times, like you might have a band that never makes like a bad record per se, but you just stop needing the thing that they do.
Yeah.
Like you
I've had
grow
that-
apart.
Yes.
You know.
Going through like all these podcasts that we've done, I think I've come across that more than I would have expected to, where I'm like, I think I've just had enough of this band at some point.
Right.
But
I feel like that kind of happened to you with Clutch.
yeah, it did to an extent. I never stopped liking what they did. I just
Sure.
stopped needing it at some point.
Right.
They got a lot of albums too.
That's another thing too, man. Like, I know you work hard, but fuck.
right. But yeah, Baroness is not even close, and like we'll get to the other shit obviously, but like over the pandemic, like, so their last album came out in 2019, and since then John has come up on social media and be like, yeah man, we got like 35, 40 songs, we're ready to go on something, and I'm like, do it, I need it. So yeah, I'm ready to go for something else.
They're like, we're running out of colors. So
Well,
like,
no, they're done with their color thing.
oh, okay.
They've said that they're going to do something different going forward.
Okay. I like the idea that like that's why they have it like done.
Yeah. Well, we reached the end of the rainbow. We can't start over.
Yeah, we have 40 fucking
We
songs.
can do clear, like
A, B.
there are 26 letters. We got a long way to
We
go,
got a
guys.
long way to go. Every album is like a quintuple album.
Numbers, they don't end. What are we gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
No.
All right, cool.
Cool.
Later, so the next one will be either more Baroness or something with a guest. Who knows?
Mystery guest.
Yeah.
Who can
We'll
say?
see.
We'll see.